Our IT director, Thomas Farmer. Go for it.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me all right? There we go. Got to get a little closer to the mic.
That's right. You can yell at us.
So the IT department is made up of 7 full-time employees, including myself, and a part-time admin assistant. Though there's no changes requested for next year as it relates to staff at this time. Fiscal year 24, this is our budget for the last 4 years. The primary increases has been as we've taken in more expenses from other departments for maintenance renewals, consolidating into IT so we can better assess what is being spent and make sure that it gets paid properly is where we've seen the majority of the increases, primarily from 22 to 23 budget. We've also added a new position last year for a security analyst position. Currently, we are working on a network upgrade that we purchased back in October. It will enable us to better protect and secure our network. So we're continuing to implement that equipment and those security initiatives. We're also soon to be migrating our current phone system to the cloud to allow for better resiliency in our phone system and resolve some of the pesky issues we've been having lately with our phones. And then we're also improving our security posture with policies, procedures, pen testing internally, externally, those types of things.
Does that include cybersecurity, Thomas?
Yes, correct. Challenges in the future. So while this year our budget is staying in operating, I think we're looking at about $19,000 increase overall from last year, and about $12,000 of that is every 2 years we upgrade the commission's devices. So that's about $12,000 of that difference from last year where we didn't replace those. So pretty much our operating is staying pretty flat outside of personnel increases that happen every year. Having said that, though, one of the areas we've been having issues with that I don't know if we'll be able to compensate for in future years is more and more software vendors are coming to us with larger than expected increases where they were typically in the past 3 to 5% increases year over year. We had one due to a merger or an acquisition this last year that did go up 76%. So we had to find another alternative to that solution. And there, I think 2 years prior, we had an increase to our website hosting that was outside of norms. So while these last couple years, that has allowed us to stay kind of flat by making adjustments, I don't know that those adjustments, there's no more fat to trim as we move forward, or it's going to become more and more difficult. Some of the other things that have allowed us to stay flat is the network upgrade that I just talked about that was funded with ARPA money has allowed us to replace some of those items with newer technologies. So we've been able to not have those expenses moving forward. One of the areas that we're also going to have issues with in the future is retaining staff. As more and more opportunities come available for staff outside of the city, whether it's working remotely or higher pay, we're going to potentially have difficulties with in that area is something I can foresee. I don't know how we'll, short of just giving more money, I don't know how we'll be able to address that, but that's a potential issue in the future. For me, that's all I have. I'm not really asking for anything extra or new this year, so if you have any other questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much. Anything from you, City Manager?
Just one comment that, he's not asking for anything, but I just want to commend Thomas and his staff. Some of the training that they provide to the staff that we have to take every once in a while, I'll tell you what, it becomes so helpful and useful. I have become an expert on finding out if this is a scam or not, and a lot of staff have done the same thing. So hats off to Tom and his staff for providing that training for us, because it's really helpful. Otherwise, you'll end up with the hack somewhere, and I think it would destroy our system. So thanks, Thomas and his staff.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Commissioner Martin.
One is sort of a general thing. Do we have a way, are we looking at any ways to archive voicemail without having to send it to Outlook and up?
Which voicemails themselves?
Like when I get voicemail on my phone,
On your cell phones?
on my cell phone, and they tell me I'm running out of storage, and I was told the only way to deal with that was to send the voicemail to Outlook and then archive the Outlook message.
So having that in a service provider network outside of our own makes it difficult. We can archive the text messages as they come through.
Yes, I know, yeah.
And I'll look to see if our solution or if any other solutions have that capability, but right now I don't think so. One option that we could potentially look at is the new phone system. If we look at going away from having your cell phone as the number you give out and using the provided phone number from that provider, those ones can be, from my understanding, those ones can be held for the year period of time that we would potentially want to have those archived for.
Yeah, well, one of the things that coming from telecommunications background in software, I am very sensitive to the fact that we are actually held hostage to maintenance and storage. I have held clients hostage to maintenance.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any way around that, but I think that we need to be sensitive to the fact that when we store things in the cloud, that's the equivalent of letting them charge us anything they want to retrieve that.
Yeah.
So it is something I think we really need to be hypersensitive to, because I don't want to hear Google say, hey, you want to continue seeing your stuff? Well, it's going to be $1 million a day. And we're kind of in that position with a lot of that software. The other thing that I'm aware of is how quickly we obsolete our software and hardware. And how do we have any program in place, the way we do for vehicles, saying, hey, we know that the lifetime of this is X. Do we have any ongoing plans for that, or are we dealing with it on a case-by-case basis?
So we already do have that in place for our computer hardware. It's a
For the hardware?
Yeah, for computer hardware, it's a 5-year life cycle. So every 5 years, 20% of the equipment is replaced.
But again, it's the software that keeps all the hardware running. So, you've talked about changing suppliers, changing manufacturers, that kind of thing. I just didn't know if you were looking at software as being another asset that does.
A lot of the software vendors have moved over to that software as a service model. And so as we've been, there are very few pieces of software that we probably actually own anymore because of that. It's great in some aspects, but yes,
You're holding hostage. But we're also aware that, you may want to switch software vendor.
Yes.
And it's not a particularly agile facility.
Yes,
So.
it can be difficult. But yeah, I would say the only software we truly own that I can think of right this second is like our ERP software. But in that same sense, in order for any of that software to still be viable, you have to pay maintenance on
Right, oh, absolutely.
as well. So
But what if you wanted to change ERP vendors?
please no.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of agility I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Once, I know I don't like new programs.
Well, just the uplift that it would take for overhauling it is the biggest reason I say no, because
Yeah.
in the years of time. But yes, no, I understand.
So, yeah, I just am very sensitive to what I perceive we're being held hostage and will be.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you for all the things you have done to help me with all my technology issues.
You're welcome.
Good presentation. I have absolutely no complaints about what you're doing. I have, and even less ideas on how to instruct you to do your job. So I'm not going to pretend to understand the complexities of your job, but you always seem to get everything fixed as it needs to be done. And I enjoy the ability to have someone doing as good a job as you in IT, because I definitely need it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor.
I'm going to pick your brain a little bit, Thomas.
Sure.
I know that you're a smart man, and you had 3.5 people in 2021, and you've increased that by 4 people in 3 years to 7.5 people, correct? Full-time head count?
That sounds correct, yes.
Okay. So in that time, what you said 2 buzzwords that I pick up on. I listen to people, and it's turnover. You didn't mention, but it was mentioned last Tuesday, turnover. But you mentioned something very important to me, retaining staff.
Yes.
So you've seen 4 new people come. How much turnover have you had in your department?
To date, I think since I've been here, I can only remember 2. So I haven't had turnover in a large scale yet. But I do have staff asking for what can I do to pay them more. And I know those are the questions you get beforehand. And I know that the reason they're asking those questions is because they have those opportunities out there that they can get paid more and potentially work from home doing it.
COVID changed our dynamics with work from home. How many of the 7.5 people do you have working from home now?
Currently, right now, nobody works from home. We're looking at doing a pilot where 3 of the employees are going to work from home a week, just to see how that works out as far as in a support capacity. I hope that helps satisfy them some, but I know the dollar is the biggest satisfier.
Sometimes, coming from an HR background, I know money isn't a motivator. So work flex hours could be possibly. We have a lot of benefits in the city with vacation, time off, that I've never seen this much in my lifetime. But this is important to me because I want to retain staff. I have asked Khalid in the past what motivates people. Isn't money here? Why do we have the large turnover? And it's kind of back and forth. Cities raise, we don't. They get our employees, we raise, we get their employees, back and forth.
Yeah.
Government's new to me. I run things like a business, as I said. So retaining staff is important to me. Being the highest paid isn't important to me. But I would like to know from exit interviews what's causing our people to leave. Mm-hmm. And for you, you've had 4 increases. And question is, when people work from home, do we gain productivity or do we lose productivity? Or is it mostly just to retain staff because of COVID years where everybody worked from home?
I don't have an answer to that, only because my staff hasn't. I think In my instance, I would hope, because of the less distraction, that the day that they get a week, that they'll actually be more productive.
Are you going to be able to track that in any way when we go to shift to that? Because we're running out of space city-wise. I kind of question why we have so many cars out here and why we don't have people working from home. But before I question that, does that lower the productivity level? You know, I don't know, and these are rhetorical questions, so I don't really expect an answer. But what I would like to see is some best practices where we can look into areas so that we can retain staff, have exit interviews on why people are leaving, not just monetarily reasons. What is it internally that we could improve on? Those type of things is what I'm looking at. And kudos to you. You've gained 4 people, and I don't know how you would justify that based on other cities and what they need. I just know security is huge right now. So,
Yes.
you know, everybody's going to tell you that we need that because of the world we live in. But thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I attended a workshop at the FCCMA last year, and to my surprising about working remotely, they were saying that based on the survey, not here, but general survey, that the productivity level went up 27%. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. We haven't really done it here, but that's what they said at the conference.
I hope if you shift in that direction for retention that you are able to track productivity levels at some sort, at least for our city manager to be able to do that, because obviously we're going to outgrow our spaces as we grow as a community. We're going to have to look into things like that.
Some positions are, you could, have the work remotely, and some positions we couldn't do that. We have a policy for working remotely. Some of the employees, they have utilized this policy. But again, there's some position that just it doesn't function working remotely, and some are.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Commissioner Hartman.
I have no questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thomas, will the transformation of the IT of the phones to a cloud-based system change the rates we're paying at, let's say, the Live Oak Center, which is like $600 a month?
No, that won't. The phone migration won't impact that. With the network upgrades we're doing, we're going to investigate if there's the ability to use different types of service there that can allow the network upgrade we've done lets us use the network a little differently and optimize how it's used. So the increase in cost at that location is for the connectivity back to the enterprise that's more expensive than commodity internet is. There's the potential with the new network equipment that we could use maybe 2 commodity internet connections that are in lower cost. So we are investigating ways to reduce telecommunication costs in that aspect. So much so that initially when I started here, I wanted to put as much fiber to our locations as we can to get off of recurring costs like that. We still got to pay for internet, but that enterprise network connection that is about $500 a month for that site, that fiber would take care of it. If we can go over to 2 commodity internet connections in place of that, and the more we go to cloud services there, we may not need that more expensive connection. And our ROI for our own fiber is then kind of blown out of the water too, if we can reduce that cost. So it's avenues I'm looking into. Because I know that, yes, at some of those locations, that's kind of a big ask for that cost.
Thanks. I appreciate you doing that. It seems high to me as well. How competitive are we to both commercial and to other municipalities on attracting talent and retaining talent, if you've done any research in that area?
So I've done a little bit of research, and our pay range is comparable to, say, like Daytona Beach for this area. The problem that I think we run into is because we hire at the lower end of the range, where I know Daytona Beach anyway, they hire at a mid or sometimes even a little higher than mid-range. And then the other part with our talent pool is we're not just competing with other municipalities for where IT people can go, where in some other jobs you're only competing with other municipalities. We compete with every other IT firm or anybody else who has IT out there. So that space has a lot more competition and a lot higher pay. And especially, you're not even just competing with the area because they can work fully remote. I know that there's some jobs that they have a premium pay based on if you're located in a higher cost of living area like San Francisco. But still that's where I foresee the problem is that ability.
On the commercial side, not on the
Yeah.
municipality side. And
Right.
so we lag far behind our commercial partners
In
salary.
In salary,
Maybe not
yes.
benefits, as Vice Mayor pointed out. Gotcha.
Benefits can even be comparable. I know some tech companies, they don't even have defined days off. If you're working and you're keeping your workload up, you can take as many days off as you can basically afford to and still do your job.
Got it. Would you advise that we use you as a test bed for your department, as a test bed for our city to experiment with that?
For certain positions, we definitely can. There's, like our help desk positions, they need to be here and servicing all of our customers. So a lot of times that, they may drive out to different sites, several times a day. So that would be a more, and we only have 2 of those positions.
Can you remote in? Do you have that capability?
We do have the ability to remote in a lot of the time, but there's some times where you just have to have hands-on.
Got it.
And only having 2 people makes it difficult to have one person working remotely, especially when you then have people taking time off.
Great. Thanks for all your answers today. You run a great group, and we're so happy that we have you.
Thank
you, Thomas. Appreciate it. Any closing remarks?
No, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Okay, so let's go on to development services, please. I see Shane in the batter's box.
Good afternoon. You guys have been at this all day. I'll try to be as quick as I can.
We'll slow you down. It's all right.
Okay. Let's see, we'll get started here. This is our organizational chart. It has remained the same for several years. We've got approximately 40 full-time employees. That has not changed from last year, with the bulk of those employees in building. Code compliance has 7, planning 5, engineering 5 as well. Our challenges remain that we are a popular place to move to. Development activity is high. In addition, people are still repairing from hurricane damage, as well as doing a lot of remodeling. So permits are high. We'll look at those numbers in a second. But we continue to look for opportunities to improve our services through technology, training, communicating with our stakeholders, being the public, contractors, and looking at opportunities to make code changes to make our processes better. Here's a snapshot at building permits for the last 3 years. You can see they are going down. Can't exactly pinpoint what's going on here, but what we think is going on is that the interest rates are starting to impact, especially new construction. A lot of people are doing remodels and upgrades to their homes, but we do have a lot of lots coming online, as you know, such as Shell Point. So we expect the new builds to pick back up as soon as interest rates begin to drop. Here we've got a snapshot of our business tax receipt revenue. That graph is a little misleading. It looks like the drop is a lot greater than it is. I've tried to drill down into that data to try to figure out what that dip means. Our staff's initial analysis is that the column on the far left when there's an initial tax receipt that's obtained, it gets a base rate as well as an inspection along with it. So that bumps it up a little bit. And then they renew that the following year, and that would be the middle column. Why it jumps back up, we haven't been able to nail that down yet, but we do have staff looking into it. And then on the right, you can see the pie chart showing the breakdown of the major types of business tax receipts that we issue. The bulk are going to lodging and restaurants, followed by professional services such as doctors, dentists, accountants, attorneys, things of that nature. And then below that would be retail merchants. Those would be the top 3 categories. Here we've got snapshots of our code compliance for the last 3 years. The number of complaints seem to be going way down. That could be because after Ian, lots of properties were damaged. There were lots of construction activities, lots of complaints, and now that's getting caught up. At the same time, the number of cases going to the code board is slightly up and relatively flat for the special magistrate. Building, the last 2 years, the total budget went down almost 3%, and expenditures remained relatively flat. Here, again, total budget down about 3% and revenue relatively flat. Except for you see the gap on the far left on the 2021, and that was when we were issuing free building permits, first due to Ian, and then followed closely by COVID. So both of those took a big chunk out of buildings revenue. We get to planning. Planning stays extremely busy. Although last year our applications were slightly down, we're predicting them to be higher than the last 2 years. That would cover everything from zone changes, variances, uses by exception, variances, things of that nature, site plan reviews. So that we're expecting that to be close to 200 this year. And again, with pre-application meetings, I would say this is a category that takes up a significant amount of staff time, but the general public gets an opportunity to get involved and watch these meetings and stay informed with everything that's going on. We do them online, typically online. Sometimes we do them in person. We also record them now so people can go back and watch them at their leisure if they've missed them. But it's one of our tools for communicating with the public, and it helps the developers as well navigate the entire process. So as far as I know, we've got no complaints on that. Probably around 6 or 7 of our staff are involved with those each week, and I would say that it consumes a day to a day and a half for each one of those staff members, depending on how busy the week is. This is a pretty interesting list. We've been working on a lot of projects internally, and all of these would need to come in front of you at some point if they make it that far. Chapter 50, you all are very familiar with. That's ready to go anytime. Landscaping, that was a project that was with a consulting firm when I got here. It had kind of gotten dropped and forgotten about. We picked it back up, and we just about have that one completed with a draft ready to go to public view. Comprehensive plan, we are working on the transportation element with a consultant on that one right now, but we have numerous elements that need to be updated. So I need to get with Khalid and Ron and talk about a strategy for what we want to do. We got a quote back that was much higher than we expected, so we're talking internally about how much of that we can do in-house or how much we actually need a consultant to help with. But we're going to try to bring that price tag way down. Stormwater, that is completed. It's ready for a public meeting at any time. A section of the LDRs on PUDs, we've done a draft rewrite of that internally. It's about ready. WaterStar, we had one public meeting on that. Wasn't attended real good, but thank you for Commissioner Martin for showing up. That will be ready again for a public meeting anytime. Transportation impact fees, we currently have a consultant working on that. Every so many years that has to be updated. So we've started that process. We've got a first draft on a sign ordinance rewrite. We also have a first draft on newsstand standards. And newsstands being those little boxes that you see scattered around on the sidewalks, different places. Some communities have developed standards for them that only so many can go in a place at one time, and they have to be screened or be a certain color and things of that nature. So we do have a first draft of that that'll be ready whenever we're given the word. But it's been a lot of work, and we look forward to getting all those in front of you as soon as possible. I won't go through all of these, but although these are managed by our engineering department, you won't see them as line items in our budgets because they actually come out of different pots of money from either different departments, the general fund or enterprise funds. So for example, stormwater projects will come out of the stormwater fund, or there might be something in the general fund, and it's just, they're all different, but you won't see any of these in our planning and engineering budget. Last year, planning and engineering basically went up almost 3%. Otherwise, relatively flat. And that was my last slide, but I will say, looking forward to next year, we're still finalizing our numbers on the budget. Right now, it looks like planning and engineering, we might be asking for about $10,000 more dollars, basically for operating expenses, filing fees, things of that nature. We're not asking for any vehicles, any personnel, or any capital projects. So we're going to be relatively flat compared to what we've been the last couple of years. With building, they're waiting on clarification from finance on a couple of things. We'll have those numbers pretty soon, but their revenue is a bit down. As you saw, the permits were down, so that impacts their revenue. And we're looking at a budget that's maybe $60,000 less than it was the year before. But again, not asking for any new personnel or vehicles or any capital spending building either. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Anything from you, City Manager, to tee this up?
No, thank you.
Anything for you, sir? No? Very good. Commissioner Hartman?
No, I have nothing.
Commissioner Martin?
Just a couple quick questions, and thank you, Shane. Yeah, when did the name on complaint become required? You were looking at code compliance complaints, and I know at some point it became mandatory that the complainant's name be on the complaint. So I have a whole boatload of people who do not put in code complaints for that reason. So in this timeline, do you know when that became mandatory?
I haven't, I know that was within the last year or two, and that was, Ron saying 3 years? 3 years ago. 3 years?
Was it 3? So I was just wondering if that,
That possibly could. I haven't looked at that correlation, but you could be right.
yes, I'm wondering about that. And you mentioned that staff time is used on the pre-apps, quite a bit of staff time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that over and above, like, if they didn't have the pre-app meetings, that staff time wouldn't be used? I mean, I thought from my attendance, it seemed to me that they are reviewing the applications that they would have to be doing whether or not that meeting was held. Am I wrong?
Well, the pre-app is a cursory review and feedback. It's not a formal review. A lot of those projects that make it to pre-app don't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. So, they'll schedule the meeting, they'll send us a drawing or something to look at. Staff will take a quick look at it and, see if there's any red flags. And the staff is great. They've been here for so long. They've got the code memorized pretty well. They've seen most scenarios, so they're able to provide general feedback. But the actual review, the technical review where they're entering in comments into our system and everything is separate.
Yeah, so what I think I hear you saying is that these ones that are never going to happen would be dismissed earlier in the game if we didn't have the pre-app.
No, I think the pre-app actually, once some people have ideas of things they want to do with a piece of property, and they come in, and once they hear the regulations or for instance, the amount of parking that things require oftentimes or become a hindrance, and they realize, well, I can't accommodate the amount of parking that the regulations are asking me to do, so I can't do this project.
My question is, I thought that this was a quick way to get through, but I'm very protective of staff time, and if you're telling me it takes more staff time by having the pre-apps, then that's something I thought we should consider. I thought it was helping and reducing staff time.
Well, in the long run, it may, because if someone formally submits before having a pre-application meeting, then they may have all sorts of things wrong with their proposal, and then staff's going through, and then you end up with more back and forth with them. So it may all come out in the wash.
Okay, I don't like endorsing something that uses an inordinate and over and above a necessary amount of time on staff.
I would strongly advocate for keeping the pre-apps if that was ever a question.
Good. Thank you.
Commissioner Martin, how the pre-app idea came about. It's exactly to avoid what's happened. So in the past, before the pre-app used to have,
I understand. I was confused only when Shane said that it takes a day and a half of staff time that would not otherwise be used, and so I was confused and was trying to clarify that.
But it might save like 3 weeks down the road by reviewing all the plans and provide comments, and they don't do it. So I mean, it's a day and a half for a month. I think I will buy it.
I love the pre-apps.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you. I'll continue on with pre-app. So one of the things that I do have experience in is going to pre-apps from different cities because of my past history. And I can tell you I couldn't live without pre-apps because, and I've been to other cities and what they do and how much they help new businesses is like incredible because people are so focused going down one path, and by the time the pre-app board gets done with them, they've chucked it and said, nope, let's think of something new that really will work. And I've seen this in all cities, and hats off to Stephanie and her group and Shane that do that. And one of the things that COVID did help with that is it went from staff coming inside to a meeting to the Zoom meetings and the phone calls. And I've seen you guys transition over the years because I've been following you for a lot of years. And I get more compliments from citizens of all of this entire city for the pre-app people because of how much time you save our new businesses, which leads me right into the new business licenses are down. And so are the building permits, and possibly if building permits, the impact fees because there's less building. So my question with this, when we budget, we don't know economic indicators of where we're going to go, which does indeed impact budget because if your permits, I mean, it's not a large amount of money, but it does impact hiring, jobs, you know, how many people we have on staff. Is it a trend this year? Is this trend going to continue? If interest rates go down, like you mentioned, will the building permits go up? We have people, the floods, you know, we have moratoriums. We have less building this year, possibly because of the floods. People are more cautious. We're more cautious. I can see all of this as a trend. So we question ourselves when we're approving this budget. We had 1,300 permits less this year than last year. So with that information, how do we foresee what next year is going to be like when we're budgeting? And what's an impact? And headcount, how's that going to impact? If you have less licenses, less impact fees, less pre-app meetings, then, you know, what are those people going to spend their time on, labor-wise? Just questions that I don't know that when we're hammering these out, we're so focused on what we spent last year. I focus heavy on revenues and what we spend. But if our expenses are going to go up and our revenues are down because of economic indicators that we can't control, we need to adjust quickly. But we don't want to lay off and then rehire. So I caution our movements, not knowing, as Commissioner McGurk said earlier today, that we can't plan with a crystal ball what our economy is going to do, but we're constantly thinking that our personal property tax millage rates and all of these things are going to constantly have good values, but it's not guaranteed. None of this is. So with those thoughts, I know I didn't ask a question, but this trend is what I see this year is a big question. Do you tweak your budget based on this year's trend, or you just automatically think it's going to be better next year?
I tend to think that it's going to trend back up. I don't see the growth in Florida and the amount of people moving to Florida, the attractiveness of this area, Orlando, Volusia County. You see it all over the state of Florida, and I don't think the trend's going to be any different here. It's just my personal crystal ball.
How fast do we respond to economic indicators like this? Like, we see 2 years of it, we tweak, or you see people twiddling their thumbs at work and not having anything to do because we had 1,300 permits less, or do you have them on new projects, or kind of walk me through how you handle it as a manager when this happens.
I have not seen anyone twiddling their thumbs yet. If we got to a point where people didn't have enough to do, then I'd speak with upper management and take direction from them.
How do you gauge that? Do you gauge it through productivity objectives every year? If they're meeting their objectives, then you tweak them, or like we approve a lot, but we don't get involved at your level at all. That's our city manager's job. We don't get in that lane. But I'm just curious to how we've had a lot of requests in this last year and a half for increases in headcounts, but I haven't seen yet saying, well, our blank is down, you know, or our inspections are down, or this is down, you can have this person. You know what I'm saying? Or, hey, we're going to move this person to another department. And I don't know if you do that internally and just don't tell us that you're doing that and because you're not asking for something from us, or if you guys do lateral moves, you job share, you do things that corporations do so that you flow smoothly and don't have to hire new people?
Well, I would think for us, if we slowed down, that would mean we would get the permits and reviews done even faster, and we would get them back to people. And so that would probably be a trend that we'd absorb for a while before we would know if things are going to pick back up or if things are going to head back down. So it's really hard for me to say. We'd have to look at I'd say the data for several years before we would lay anyone off or transfer them anywhere.
I could tell you this, Vice Mayor, from just monitoring their operation. I would say the majority of the staff is actually overloaded, which means if the workload slowed down, I think it's like they'll be catching up. If we see, I mean, it happens in every department. If we see the level of the workload is dropped dramatically, I mean, that's when we have to make a decision whether we eliminate the position or whether we lay off. But I have not seen it in the development services since 2009. I mean, the workload, it just keeps increasing. Just recently, we started seeing it that it's increasing slightly, but we could actually, if I wanted to, we could have maybe 3 or 4 people based on what happened 2 years ago. So I think they're overloaded, but we will monitor the situation. If we see a trend, we will do exactly what other agencies will do.
And I'm not insinuating that. I'm just insinuating that I'm just saying we need to watch economic indicators as well. And we get so on track of rush that we don't stop and actually look at trends in revenues and where are we going from here based on, is this needed, but this is needed in this area instead because of, you know, there's a group of people in this city that try to slow down development. There's another group in this city that's saying, wow, you're taking so long to approve my permits. Mm-hmm. You make it impossible for New Smyrna to build. I'm going to go to Edgewater instead. They do it in half the amount of time. Up here, we hear that all the time. We hear both sides. You're killing the turtles. You're not building fast enough. There's a happy balance here with economic development, what we build, what Chris is responsible for, and getting better jobs here, what we do build with permits. So our focus we've been hammering out this entire year is what we need to do right development, and that's something that doesn't create flooding. Commissioner Martin said exact words, before we build, we need to hold the developers more accountable for things. I would think that these jobs, even though that the licenses are down, the permits are down, that focus could shift on those type of things, like exactly that, holding developers accountable, but not saying no to all development, but the development that we have that our manager said 50 years ago didn't happen because the HOAs aren't accountable. Are we shifting the HOAs and that work so that they're responsible for for this so the taxpayers aren't spending money that the HOA should be spending on. That's kind of all this same area. So I think really high level response of reaction time is needed. Government tends to work slower than I like, but tweaking those job descriptions in HR quickly. This year we went a whole year, 1,300 less, so now we're turning the permits around faster. I'd like to see what we're doing in that amount of time that, not here at this level, but I'm saying you would want to see that. So what is staff doing now since they didn't do 1,300 permits? Are we getting the assistant building inspectors' licenses up to date so we just don't have one building inspector with license? Those kind of things. So that is just a challenge that I always put with each department head. Where are we going from here? And kudos. I can't say enough about your pre-apps and the things you do and the building inspections and all of it. And you've had to deal with us for Chapter 50 for a year. So, goodness, thank you for all of that.
Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. I think I'm the last at bat, right? Okay, here we go. Picking up on Commissioner Martin's, when did code enforcement seek ID before they went out? Shane, if you might dig in and find out how many interventions or how many discoveries are happening incident to travel to a designated site? In other words, I understand that somebody calls and it's a drive to get there. How many random sightings compared to the total or compared to the number that were called in have actually been done? I want to know what the alertness, what the discovery rate is of things that are just discovered along the way. I understand I've been told it's significant, but I don't know the number. And I understand you have to call and you have to ID to get somebody, which may be why the numbers are down. I can't imagine any other reason. But I'm also told that if along the way while they're driving they sight something at a specific site, that's fair game to go and enforce. I'd like to know how, not today, not just in due course. I'd love to know what that number is.
If I could just clarify.
Please.
You're asking how many cases are initiated by the code enforcement staff?
Yeah.
Or other city staff?
While they're responding to one of the calls, that's what.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, thanks. Just to curiosity.
I will say they are sensitive. There's a balance like anything. They go after a business for having a flag out, announcing that they're opening or they're having a sale.
Sure.
First thing that business owner does is start to blow your all's emails up. That we're being too tough on them. So there's a balance there. We try to strike it.
You bet. That you said that it makes a world of difference. You get that there is a balance, and that's important that you and your team see that. Back to the question that keeps lurking about, you've presented a bunch of key performance indicators here, mostly how much your budget is and stuff like that, and things like that. What I didn't see is time to complete. If with a paucity of permit requests, my assumption is, it could be totally wrong, that if the load is down, the speed is up. And so if time to complete a permit is up, I'd be happy. And the town would be delighted. If it's the same speed with half the work, back to Commissioner Perrine's point, what's filling the gap? Now, I got some ideas what you might be doing, and I'll have a question about that, but does that make sense? You got some key performance indicators here, but nothing about speed, and as we all know, that's the big complaint around town is how fast you guys go, or don't. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
One of the things I have noticed is that when I get calls about the length of time it's taken to get a permit, it's because the applicant did not supply all the required information.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
so, my favorite one was a plumbing one where they had submitted a construction permit. So the speed, I think, can best be judged by the time between an application being completed and okayed, but the applicant sees it as functionally the time where they first thought of having a permit
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
completion
Of course
time.
they do, and that's exactly right, and I understand the difference between complete permits. I've been schooled up on that. But if I'm the applicant, and I don't know any of that stuff about completeness or not, the contractor controls most of that. Contractors are apt to blame us, and I'd love to know the difference between that. How you measure it's important. Certainly, if I'm the applicant, meaning I'm the owner, I don't really care about all the inside baseball. I just want to know from the day it was turned in, if my contractor was at fault because it wasn't complete, that's on me. And I'd love to know, we should be able to defend ourselves by saying, of the complete permits turned in, here's the speed. Of the incomplete permits to turn in, our time to reattack and go back to them was, hey, I called them the next day and said it's incomplete. Get down here and either fix it or your time is stopped. That type of stuff's important, I think.
I'm not sure if we can tease that data out or not, but
Okay.
we can try.
Okay. You see what I'm after, though, right? Incomplete permit, okay, it's going to sit over here for a week. Well, that doesn't, that's not nice.
If we're not able to tease that data out, we may be able to create a function so in the future we can.
Yeah. Now, I know this city has been through it when the economy was down. Mr. Rashadat cut back severely, and we trimmed down, and so getting out of the attitude of hey, we don't have any money, we're in an economic down cycle, which Commissioner McGurk predicts will come again, and it will. But in the meantime, I don't want us to behave like we're in a down cycle. If we're not, if we're in a down cycle for building, then our speed should be up, or something else should be done with those disposable hours of work. I suspect you guys may be working on LDR tweaks and adjustments, and that's what I'm thinking that you're doing. But I want to put words in your mouth, because obviously that's of import. Many around the city think that our LDRs need work. Is that what you're doing?
That's part of what we're doing. I did have a slide on that. A lot of these projects, we're not farming these out to consultants. We're doing most of these in-house. So a couple of these we are engaging consultants, but the bulk of them we're doing in-house.
Very good. We're anxious to see those LDR updates. Can you go back to the money slide on the personnel? You've been here a year now,
Just
Shane?
over a year.
Just over a year. Do you see the number from 20, one more. There we go, that's pretty good. No, is there another one? What was the last one you had up? Wrong way. There we go. Hold that. That's planning and engineering. Okay, that's good enough. So from actual of 21, 22 to adopted of 23, 24, this personnel services expense has doubled. Same with the operating expense. Can you help me with that? You see that went from 604,000 to 1.2, and then from that's for personnel expense, and the operating expense was 158 to 297. So each of those have doubled.
I'll have to dig on that.
Did we buy a bunch of people, and what about the operating expenses doubled those?
Mayor, the double there, I think it was the compression study that we've done, if you remember, last year, when we had the study and the compression, and so that what that is.
I remember that. Heather, we're going to blame Heather anyway. I'm not sure we hired that many folks, but for the salaries to have doubled.
We also, we also used to allocate out some of engineering to the other funds.
We took it in-house?
Now we put it back all in and we use it as a overhead cost. So you can see the full salary in their budget.
So what happened is you got the consulting dollar sign used to be in a separate, now it's including in the personnel.
Wasn't it also that Brian Fields was sort of holding two positions? And so we had one human being with both assistant city manager and director of development services. And so now we have separate individuals.
But that would not double the amount, but you got few factors, the compression and also the amount of the consulting that was separate, now it's included there.
And did that account for the personnel expenses, sir? Yeah? How about the operating expenses double?
I have to look at it deeply. I don't know.
Hey, I'm not trying to play stump the jump here. It went from 158 to 297.7, so I'm just thinking, okay, what does that represent?
When did they move from US 1 over to this building?
To this building in 2019? 20? 2020.
Okay, so
I think it
about-
was August 2020.
So the operating expenses in the new building.
Okay. Anybody else with the questions? Yes, ma'am.
I think you're going to where a lot of the citizens have asked me to, and I don't have an answer, just like we didn't get an answer now, but they're saying, why has our budget almost doubled in blank years, but our growth and our population has not grown in relationship to the amount of the budget that has grown so substantially? And they want a quick, easy answer to that. And I've been asked that multiple times by citizens. And it's just like this, it doubled why. You know, I guess what we did in finance, if there was a huge variance like this, whether it be percent or dollar figure, I'd put it in the comments because you know we're going to ask that. We kind of been doing that all day. We've been asking things that look out of whack to us. But I think you guys are in it so much that it, you know, you don't really question what it looks like to us. And it, just like that budget I saw with the leisure services, it's like I know we've asked him to do this and this and this, but at that rate, it's not going to be fast enough. We can never increase revenues faster than what the expenses are growing. And, you know, our citizens are asking that, and even if it's just a simple like, comment or answer, I think I look at a large-scale analysis and variances.
Tag on to that, Shane, as we talked about when you first got here and the city manager gave me some opportunity to have a conversation with the three of us, you're the change agent in a town that needed one, and you've been a city manager and you know some stuff. My expectation is that there'd be some china broken and people be yelling and screaming and you'd either be the goat or a hero. I don't care which, but I would like, you know, my expectation was that you'd move the ball and do stuff differently. I have great faith in you and I've seen you in action. You hear what we're asking about. You hear where we're digging around. You know the talk of the town is we've never been permitting friendly. We've been tight, and some of that was on purpose. Now that you're here, if you can help explain our way through it, great. Now that we've got a down cycle, you've got to get something for your down cycle. I got to get speed, or I got to get more different work done. So those are the questions we're asking. Not trying to get into your business. We're just trying to understand the dynamic that's going on given the change of volume of work, of permit demand. Thanks. Anybody else? Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Airport is up. They have Arvin here. Thank you, sir.
All right, everybody. Well, good afternoon. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about the airport and what we've been doing and what we see for this coming year. Just a reminder of our vision that our city airport, your city airport, is the aeronautical gateway for many people, including those who are visiting the area for the first time. So it's important that the first impression that they have of New Smyrna Beach is a safe, first-class aviation facility. Whether a very successful business owner, a family on vacation, or the governor, or a flight student, your airport is an important part of the community in that it provides a way for many people to arrive or depart from our community. The airport is currently self-sufficient, and we work hard to continue that through economic development for viable aviation businesses and users. Statewide airports contribute $336 billion to the Florida economy. Florida is ranked number 1 in the nation for total pilots. It is home to more than 6% of the nation's general aviation fleet, with 800 aviation facilities. As a reliever airport, our airport is ranked in the top 20% by the FAA's National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems. Jumping into a review of our operating budget over the last 5 years, you see an increase in expenses and an increase in revenue. Year to date, we're on track to meet our 2023-2024 adopted budget. Also want to share not only a review of previous years, but a rough look ahead for what we project for next year in terms of personnel. Those numbers will be subject to change, of course, as we get a little closer and get those more hard and fast numbers from our Human Resources Department. Note that originally we had planned to add an administrative person last year. We ultimately decided against it due to lack of office space, and we found ways to manage the workload for the time being. For the upcoming year, we're not adding any personnel. We anticipate that expenses will stay mainly flat because of a reduction of a few things that we did this year that we don't have to repeat next year. We do expect an increase in capital outlay, which I'll go over in more detail. Our current org chart. We are a small department, but I'm very proud of the team that we have. Getting into our capital improvement projects, one of the biggest projects for next year is currently in the design phase. This is Taxiway Bravo, which is parallel to the east-west runway that you see if you pass on US 1. Just past the tower there, that runway that runs almost directly east and west. Because of our ocean breeze that's predominant here in our area, that runway is the most commonly used and heavily trafficked runway, and this taxiway runs parallel to it. It's one of the longest taxiways we have. This project not only includes the rehabilitation of that taxiway, but it also addresses some runway compliance issues that we have presently, which has prevented some of our users from making what is known as instrument approaches at night during inclement weather or poor visibility. The project includes removing about 140 feet of pavement on either end of the runway, which brings us back into compliance and reinstates the approach capability for the airport users. This project is something that's been discussed for several years with the airport and the Florida Department of Transportation. It's currently in design at about the 50% mark. The facility will allow the airport to have not only adequate office space, but also public space so that we can host meetings, training sessions, etc. It also allows space for the display of historic artifacts that pay tribute to the airport's military history, heritage, and the part that it played in World War II. Other capital improvement projects for 24-25 include the replacement of our generator. It is about 20 years old. That will be covered 98% by a grant from the FAA. Also included a stormwater infrastructure design, airport wildlife fencing, a T-hanger design for more revenue generation. So either have a total there of the projects, and we have funding for all but about 60,000 of that. Speaking of historic artifacts, this is a picture of a bulldozer doing work that is currently underway at the airport. The picture of this is a bulldozer which found a portion of a World War II catapult system that was used to train naval pilots as they were catapulted, which is not as common. You wouldn't see this as much at airports as you do on naval carriers, but since we were a naval training base, it makes sense. And we found that it matches the location of a map that we found from World War II. So we confirmed that that is, so a piece of that will be on display. So it's artifacts like that that we continue to, or we hope to display and again, share with the community. But again, this Taxiway Alpha project is currently anticipated to be completed sometime in July. $3.5 million, 2% paid from the local fund. Also nearing completion, or almost completed, is a T-hanger building rehabilitation, one of our 15-unit T-hanger buildings, $800,000 grant, 80% funded by Federal Department of Transportation. The remaining 20% to be paid from the airport. This was very much needed to address some of the corrosion issues. We recently conducted a survey of our tenants, and it was the first time we had conducted such a survey. Overall, the survey was very, positive on communication and the status of the airport, the state of the airport. But one of the comments that we did get several comments about is, hey, I'm having corrosion in my hangar, and that's a concern. We addressed that with one of the buildings, but it is a never-ending battle that we have to deal with since we are so close to the salt water and since so many of our facilities are made of metal. Another big win for us this year was the completion of an air traffic control rehabilitation. If you drive by, you may or may not notice, but this has a fresh coat of paint. It has a lot of improvements. The main improvement was we addressed all the water intrusion issues. There was water coming in multiple places, including around the catwalk you see there. That picture was taken from the catwalk. It's kind of a unique view. You can see the tower cab windows there as you look over the airfield. In the distance, kind of in the middle of the picture, you can see the fuel farm. There, the two white tanks. But that was a tremendous win for our airport. We competed with all the airports in Florida for that grant, and we were the first place winner for that. And that was 100% funded, although one change order did require us to pay $7,000. Still a very good investment of the money, considering that tower is 20 years old, and this will extend the life of that facility for many years to come. The new LED beacon that's on top that you may see if you drive by at night, pilots have reported they can see it as far away as Ocala. And just a review quickly of our goals. One of the main goals that we have that we've been working on is to continue to attract new businesses. That's something that Chris and myself and my team have been working very hard on in conjunction with the FAA to make sure that while we do that, we have certain obligations and requirements that we have to abide by to make sure that we are fulfilling our grant assurances and that we use the land for its best and highest use. And I leave plenty of time for questions.
Thank you, Arvin. Appreciate that. Vice Mayor.
Bravo. I like seeing the accomplishments. Thank you for that. Just a couple of quick questions on your continue to find ways to ensure long-term financial stability. We've talked about that and with Chris, and and also the work to attract new aviation. I know you have a lot of potential here. I think you're our life raft, this and Out 44 to gain business. If we're going to move that number, it's going to be you. So in the budget, with what you're recommending for this year, what goals have you made to move that needle forward where this can happen? What are you asking for that we can help you to make that happen? Some of the things I've heard today, I'd rather see us moving your needle because we're going to get a return on our investment faster than anything else we do in this city. And that is from attracting businesses, getting an ROI on those vacant land parcels. We're going to see results from that. This spending money for new employees and all that, but we're not going to get a return. It'll be indirectly, not directly. With what you're doing, we're going to see a direct impact on what you're wanting. So tell me what you're asking for this year that will help you achieve those goals.
I think just support. Since we're an enterprise fund, we're not asking for anything other than your support on things. When we move to, there's some pieces of land that we have to do work on, or that we may have to, change the use of a building, or there's several projects ongoing like that. So that's all we need. I'm really just asking for support and
you're wanting
continued
labor support?
No.
People internally?
No.
I mean, whatever you need, I'm going to vote, to help you move this project along in these, but I don't know how much that is, how much labor that is. And of course, we need to know that before we can vote yes, but we've given you the encouragement to go forward with this, and that because the whole city will see a positive impact from this in so many ways. And I love how you've already framed in for us your accomplishments. So now I'd like you to frame in how do we go from here to there with Chris and make this happen.
So I neglected to mention, but in our future projects this year, I could go back a couple slides, but just to tell you quickly, the taxiway project that's going to be designed, when we go out for a grant, included in that work is what's known as an Exhibit A, which is required, and it's 98% funded, but it's a review of our property and exactly where the boundaries are, and it allows us to better determine what we can do with the land that we have. So that's something that's necessary, because every time we go to the FAA and say, hey, I'd like to use this piece of land for whatever it may be, their response is well, you have to prove to us, is this obligated, is not obligated, has it been released from federal obligations? And so we don't have all that history. We have some of it. And so what this work will allow us to do is make better decisions about the land that we have. And the great news is that's already mostly funded. So that, in conjunction with working with Chris we already have several things that we may not be able to talk about right now, but we're working hard on. And we have interested parties in some of the land. And I think that will be a win for the community and the airport.
Music to my ears. Thank you.
Commissioner Hartman.
Thank you for the presentation. Where are we with the admin building?
Yes, it's in the 50% design stage. FDOT has pledged $1 million this year and $1 million next year. And so they're actually writing a grant now to offer us the first $1 million for that, so that we could potentially be breaking ground or going out to bid sometime around end of their fiscal year is different than ours. So, if we're going out for bid July or August or something like that to potentially break ground, maybe the first of the year, depending on. So it's moving along.
Okay. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Commissioner Martin.
Just a clarification for those who are listening, since the preponderance of the airport revenue comes from intergovernmental revenue, people may not know what that means.
Sure. I can explain that. So when an aircraft buys fuel or you travel on an airline, you pay a tax that tax gets pulled and then it's divvied up between all the airports, and the FAA determines based on your ranking, as I was talking about the National Plan of Integrated Airport System, that depends on your ranking, and we tend to be higher, so we tend to get funding fairly quickly. And also FDOT, same thing. So FDOT has, all the different offices, whether it's rail and all of those. So when you pay fuel taxes, whether it's fuel, aviation fuel and car fuel, all those, that gets pulled into one pool. Aviation gets a small portion of that, and then FDOT divides that up between all theirs. So intergovernment revenue is coming from FDOT and FAA.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Arvin, keep the revenue coming. I like that. I like to see the progress there. I love that entrepreneurial spirit, and you're one of the easy growth places in town that can make that happen from a variety of angles. How are you doing on the noise? What's the count? What's your update, if any, on noise and complaints and compliance?
Sure. I'd say complaints are about the same. They tend to come and go. Sometimes we'll go weeks and no complaints. And then lately we have had an uptick in complaints, and I chalk that up to mainly what's happened is we have construction, as I pointed out earlier. That construction means that sometimes aircraft have to use a different runway for lengths of, and that can impact somebody who maybe is not used to seeing it as much. And so we have seen a slight uptick. It's 99.9%, it's the same people who we were talking to before. We just maintain open dialogue as much as we can. I do get sometimes 5-6 calls a day from the same person. That becomes difficult to, respond to, but we just do the best that we can. We meet continually with our flight school, Epic, who have done a actually really good job in communicating and holding their students accountable. We track, I have in my hand, which I didn't include in the slideshow, but I'd be happy to email to anybody who wants it, a copy of the progress year over year in terms of, we started meeting about 15 months ago on a monthly basis. And so we see the trends. Where are they going? We did have, in March, we did have a little bit of an uptick. We met, we discussed it, we know why. We're holding those people accountable. But again, just to remind everybody, the noise abatement is voluntary only. It cannot be mandatory. So anything that we do to try to make it mandatory, somebody can file a complaint with the FAA and get us in trouble. So we have to tread that and find that middle ground. And we find that any success that we have is just that continual communication and dialogue, and it's education. It's education of the pilots. It's education for the community. And we continue to educate ourselves on how we could better handle this moving forward.
And Mayor, also just on that point, the Epic, they have created a new position, which is a noise abatement officer, that the officer and the Epic staff meet with Arvin and the assistant city manager on a regular basis to go through these data. And I have seen quite a bit of drop in violation, even though it's a voluntarily criteria, but they try to abide by it. So I think it's good that you see the numbers and how they reprimand their pilots if they violate those rules.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And Arvin, swear me away on this if I haven't got it right. I think the students are taught that they don't know anything other than that they must comply. The students are taught 100% compliance. They're not taught that it's when you can.
Well, it is. They are taught compliance. The only thing is that in certain circumstances, air traffic control, there's traffic. At the end of the day, safety has to come first. So we certainly don't want somebody to be so focused on, I don't want to fly over that house and collide with another plane, or have some other issue. So again, that's something we have to walk carefully to make sure that we are, but you're correct. They know, they are counseled, and the first time it happens, they get a verbal, happens again, it gets a written, and they have fired some instructors over it. So
Got it.
it is working.
I appreciate that. Perhaps the frequent callers, you could forward that directly to the city manager's office. Air show plans. We had one in the hopper and it faded away. Where are you with that?
Yeah, so with everything that we have going on, we put it on hold for the time being until we can rally and find a way to have a promoter do that, a professional. The challenge is that there are so many other really good air shows in the area, and those air shows like Sanford, Titusville, Sun and Fun that we just had 2 weeks ago, those typically have jet teams, and that really draws the big crowds. New Smyrna cannot have a jet team, so we cannot have like the Thunderbirds perform or the Blue Angels, and that's because the airport itself doesn't allow a big enough aerobatic box because you have communities on all sides. They need like I forget, it's like a 2-mile stretch where they can do their run. So because of that, we'd like to focus on, and that's something we have not done, but thank you for bringing it up, is finding ways to engage with the community on a smaller scale initially, whether that be pancake breakfast fly-ins or things of that nature, where we talked a little bit about, I forget the name of the club that has the old cars, but doing something together where we have old planes, we have an old plane fly, those folks fly in, and then we have some folks bring in their cars, so that finding ways to do that is on our wish list, but it hasn't come to fruition.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Appreciate all that. And appreciate your being here today. Anything else? Anybody follow up? Thanks, Arvin. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on, please, to the administrative. Yeah? City Commission, City Manager, City Attorney, City Clerk, Finance, HR, and Economic Development.
And
I'm sorry.
good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to be presenting on the administration budget, which includes, and it's not clicking, or of course not. All right, sorry. I think I got to be done. Please, really, thank you.
Kevin to the rescue.
Right.
Or not.
There we go. Okay, So administrative services consist of the city commission, the city manager, the city attorney, the city clerk, finance, business and economic development, and human resources.
Is it
Is that
working?
working? I'm getting better. Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry. Okay, so our current staffing levels, as you can see, most of us are keeping with our current staffing levels. We do intend on adding a half a position in human resources and one position in business and economic development, which we'll talk about later. So this here shows our operating and personnel budget for the city commission. And to kind of answer your question before, Commissioner Perrine, so everyone was asked to use our FY24 budgeted numbers, our presentation. And if you notice on 21 and 22 fiscal years, it's actual expenses, whereas 23 and 24, it's budgeted numbers. So that's why you have that great difference in actual versus budgeted. At the time of when creating 24, we are not completed with 23, so we use the budget amount instead of the actual dollars. That's the variance there. Okay? So this year, the City Commission is asking for an additional $3,000 for seminar and conferences, and with that also an additional $2,000 in travel, additional $2,500 in area dinners, and an additional $2,000 for the annual State of the City address. The city manager's budget, we're at $1.25 million budgeted for 2024. And for 2025, our PIO officer is requesting an increase in professional development accounts at an estimated total of $3,000 for the City County Communications and Marketing Association, Florida Municipal Communicators, and National Information Officers Association. He wants memberships for those. We are also going to add an additional position for the project manager 2 at an estimated cost of $88,000. The city attorney's office is trying to stay stagnant this year. There's no requests from her for this year. City clerk's office, right now we're at an adopted budget of $540,000. And for 2025, she's seeking to add $6,000 in incentive pay for the deputy city clerk when she gets her designation, an additional $1,000 for conference registration, and an increase to office supplies for city merit coins. And she's also seeking a merit increase for herself, amount to be determined by you guys. Finance department, as of right now, we are staying stagnant as well. Business and economic development, they are at an adopted budget of $648,000. And for 2025, they're requesting an additional administrative position, which the cost, salaries and benefits estimated at $60,700. And to couple that, they would need furniture and IT equipment. So IT $4,940 and furniture and equipment about $3,100. Human resources, her estimated budget or her adopted budget for 24 is $619,000. And her request for next year is to add a 0.5 of an FTE, basically taking a part-time position and making it into a full-time. And so the net increase of that is going to be $45,000 for next year. Also, a part of that, we're bringing back department heads and increasing their positions, their pay rates. Heather, if you want to speak on that.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting us speak to this. I bring this back to you again this year. We brought this last year because we have a few of our department heads who are not being paid the salaries that their average counterparts in the county are making. And so we did another survey and we looked at where all of the directors are. And again, it comes out that these same 4 or 5 directors are the ones that are not being paid within the market that their counterparts are. And so we'd like to request again that we look at the average. You asked me last year what the evaluations for those people look like. We've completed evaluations on all of them this year. I can tell you that 3 out of the 4 listed have a 2.8 or higher out of 3. I can also tell you that you have praised 2 of them at your meeting today so we appreciate that, and we would appreciate your consideration in this.
All right. And that's it. Any questions?
We'll see. Here we go. You're doing fine. Commissioner Hartman.
So when do we get the nuts and the bolts? What's the expected revenue for this year? What's your expected?
I have another presentation for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Martin.
When we're looking at comparing salaries,
Yes.
so let's say Director X, and we look at 5 different cities, do we include in that metric the number of supporting staff for that director title? Well, I would assume that the pay rate for a director who has 2 supporting people may be different from a director that has supporting staff of 20 supporting people. And so I just think that there's a metric there that we may need to add before just making a blanket statement. They're not all created equal.
Sure, and I'd be happy to pull that information, but I think part of that comes within our pay and classification plan that's already set, where we set our salary ranges for all of our positions within the city.
Well, I was just comparing it to other cities. If we are using other cities to compare, we want to make sure that we are comparing apples to apples.
Absolutely, and what we did last year, I actually when I took the entire county, the numbers that I gave you and the same that I did for this year, I actually took the 4 cities that we feel like compare the closest. So we compared DeLand, Port Orange, New Smyrna, and
I think that's
Norman.
based on population, isn't it?
It's based on population and how we run our cities.
Yeah, and again, I'm just simply looking at the support staff per the position title.
Okay?
Vice Mayor.
So, city manager, this is up $500,000 from 2022 to 2023 personnel services.
So in 2022, when we started including the CIP personnel as part of the city manager office. So in 2023, that's your big jump there.
Well, not only that, but I think there is positions that they were not under the city manager at the time before. So you have CIP, you have half of Phil.
Lindsay,
That's half of salaries under the city manager. You have the PIO under the city manager, and you have the assistant city manager. So.
But it says the same year that it jumps from $500,000 to $1 million, and there's 7 in head count, and only 1 extra person, not all these people you're naming. Goes from 7 to 8, not 3 or 4 like you're saying. It's $500,000. That's more than 1 person.
the only other thing I can think of at this time is the assistant city manager who was there at the time was also split out.
No, I understand, but I'm looking at is that's the Brian Fields.
That's
where
Brian
he was
Fields.
hoping 2 places.
I know.
If you could get us a little more details on
Yes.
that, that'd be good, because that's not what I'm seeing. The city clerk and the 3 that we review, city clerk, city manager, city attorney. When do we review their percent increases at the same time, all 3? When was the last time we gave an increase to all 3?
So I can address, I submitted my salary, I submitted salary request justifications via email, and I passed them out hard copies to you today. We're supposed to have a review prior to April 1st every year after the evaluations with charter officers are turned in and submitted. And that's never been done for me, so awkwardly I included myself in the justification process, but it was requested at our last workshop from you, I believe, Vice Mayor, that when salary justifications are requested, there needs to be more backup, written summaries, job descriptions. So you'll see on mine for both Sharon's position and my position, I have the job descriptions, written summaries, all of our recent evaluations, contracts, fiscal year 2024, Volusia countywide, clerk salary study, the NSB pay grade scale, and the personnel requisition forms. So that's been submitted for both of us.
So thank you for all of that. Thanks for listening to what we said last time that we'd like to see. I haven't had time to look at this since we just got it today, but my vision is when we look at this, we look at all 3 at the same time, and I would think we would give raises at the same time, but the amounts would be different based on the job description and needs. But I'm just going off of my thoughts that we would have these always in sync so we don't miss one. And yes, I did do 2 of the reviews, and I think we were required to do that by April 15th or whenever. And thank you for I need to clarify that. Thank you for doing reviews. I don't know how we have not done that in the past. So reviews, exit interviews, those are kind of things that I'm so glad we're doing now. But if we're going to look at Kelly's, I would like a workshop, because this is where I don't like our Kelly's, Carrie's, and College's leaving. So we're going to have to possibly look at not only College, but the future person that comes in all at the same time. And it may need to be a workshop before I know this is a wish list budget, and College is in charge of the department's raises, but since he's leaving, then that's going to be difficult for a new person coming in determining where we are with those department heads, which that's where Heather comes into play. So I guess I'm looking for the commission board's input on this before we kick this back to Heather, because I have more questions. But I don't remember having a workshop just talking about personnel and the reviews that we've done by them and coordinating the 3. I did my 3 reviews last year for them, but we never discussed them in Sunshine. So I think we need to do that. Instead of just saying raises, it's April, whatever, let's discuss the 3 people, because I read what you wrote last year, and I never had an opportunity to ask you why you wrote what you did. And I don't know why it's been in the past where not all the commissioners have written reviews. I don't understand that. That boggles my mind. But I think it's our duty to write these reviews for you guys and to also give you feedback, good, bad, nice, future goals, whatever. How do you know what we want unless we tell you? I'd rather not assume, because I'm going to guess that if you have to assume, you're going to assume probably incorrectly because you don't read our minds. So I think it's a good way to even though it's hard to do in sunshine, that we meet with these three at the same time in a daytime workshop or before our 6 o'clock meeting. And yeah, it's in the public, but I think it's really important.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. I couldn't agree more, although it's awkward, just as most things that are sensitive publicly, to have it out there in front of everybody, including, including your review. So I get that. But the dysfunction of not doing it and just kind of going along, which is what I think the vice mayor is protesting, is righteous, because no other government organization, although they may not have to do sunshine, have done lots of government reviews. They're all done in conjunction with the compensation packages and what have you. And they certainly are in industry.
And I would like to see maybe us be involved for the first city managers meeting and the transition of that with the department heads. Instead of saying, yes, Heather, we're going to bump the department heads up to whatever number you're basing off of other city or counties. I don't know if these department heads are meeting their objectives. I'm not going to put the cart before the horse and approve their money before I even know if they're doing a good job or not. It's more than, I know they have a lot of responsibilities. But let's even look at yours on the HR side. That's a huge difference on percents there and head counts. I don't know why. I don't have any details or backup to support that. We're going from 3 people to 3.5, and you're just asking to move one from part-time to full-time. But again, to have an increase of human resources, maintenance op, business econ development, and leisure services, we need to know more. This isn't enough.
I'll repeat what Commissioner Hartman was trying to get to. We can't answer the yes and no's and all that stuff until we hear the whole picture. And we know there's lots of work that has to go in before it all happens. I mean, we joked this morning, if we gave Director Ray everything he wanted, that's the end of the ball game. We're done. We don't have any more money. But that will never work out that way. And it can't work out with the absence of transparency and knowledge. And so knowing what the end number is important for us to work our way backwards. Everybody in this town will be watching millage, and they'll be comparing millage to everybody else in town. And is this town really worth the millage increases that we're proposing? All right. Thank you for that presentation, Salisa. Doing a great job. I know you're first time at bat here as the interim, and you're doing just fine. Thank you very much.
And that was the purpose of my question was, we don't know what our revenues coming in going to be, so where we're at. And historically, last 2 years ago, we did a compaction study and made some adjustments there. And we don't know if there's going to be a proposed across-the-board raise for everybody, which is, historically, the 3 appointed ones also get the same across-the-board raise. So, that may be in the same line as what you were thinking before. I know before there were, I think it was with Kelly's, there was an automatic increase once she reached the first year or once she reached, a certain certification. So I think those are things that we need to think about. But I do think going forward that we need to significantly bump up the city manager's position, his top out, not knowing what we're going to have to pay when we get to that level. And by the time we go through the selection process and actually hire somebody, we're going to be late into the budget process. So I'd rather have that money set aside and not spend it than have to start scrambling at the last minute to cancel this or that or something else to make things work out. So,
good thoughts for sure. Okay. Let's move on to the capital improvement team. So I see Jesse and Chad over there, ready to go.
Was the clicker thing broken?
Yes.
Battery's dead? I like standing anyways. Well, it's, as always, good to be here with all of you. I always kind of laugh because, what was that?
I'm wondering if it's a battery issue with the clicker.
Yeah, it's broke. First time I stood before you was for a budget workshop. And back then I didn't know squat, and Colin had to pretty much cover for me and do everything.
And your last, pal, so speed it up.
Yeah, so, and now it's my last time, so. A few stats just about this last year, or so far in this fiscal year, because sometimes I don't think we always understand what we're accomplishing, and I love to celebrate wins and keep that momentum and trajectory moving forward. So since October, the fiscal start of this fiscal year, as a city, we have completed and closed out 8 projects. Also, since January, we've taken on 7 new projects. Currently, as a city, we have 51 active projects. It's quite a few projects. 2 out of those 51 are on track to be completed by the end of this month. Another 4 by the end of next month, and those are on track, pretty much guaranteed it's going to happen. Some might even happen ahead of schedule. And then an additional 4 by the time we come to the end of this fiscal year. In the last 2 weeks, we received 8 proposals for additional projects that still need to be assessed and reviewed to see if we have the resources, the people, the funding, to take on those projects. Our projects range from $20,000 to $16 million per project. Over $500,000 we have saved the city in just the last 6 months through mitigating and negotiating change orders. So those have been change orders that were submitted that we didn't accept, that we negotiated and pushed back. So we've been saving our city money through good negotiation. If we complete all the projects by the end of this fiscal year, that'd be 18 completed projects, which is 6 more than we completed last year in 2023. So if we were to ask, what are some of the reasons or some of our success factors to help us complete these projects? We've worked on creating a better foundation and framework for the structure by which we manage our projects, and set up some routines and habits across all of our different sectors, and it seems to be going really well. We have higher level of collaboration across all departments, just good communication, and everybody seems to be working incredibly well together. Also, having additional resources of people has been a huge factor to that. For example, the CIP department, until Chad and I were here, it was 1 person. It's pretty amazing what you can do with 2 and share some of that workload. Not only that, I know, Mr. Hartman, you've asked several times about stormwater. And for a long time, our different stormwater projects, Historic West Side, Corbin Park, and the Stormwater Master Plan, seem to sit dormant. That's because, to your point earlier, Valley, on what is staff doing, we didn't have enough people. We had too much work. To Colin's point, we had too much work and not enough people. Now that we brought on Ton, our new senior city engineer, he's taken all 3 of those projects, got them up and going again, has good traction moving forward, got the 90% design across that line and some to the finish line of 100% to where we're ready for the next steps. So it's just really cool. I want to give a shout out to Arvin and his team because they're part of the project, capital projects. Arvin and Jacob and Tammy are not only great to work with, but they've partnered together with AvCon and other consultants to develop a 3 to 5 year plan for their projects, prioritizing which projects should be done at which time and the sequence, how one affects another. And that's creating higher level of success for the airport projects. And that's something we want to see continue to happen in the capital improvement project plan. So those are some of the factors. I also want to just give a quick shout out to finance, especially Janet Vivian, for what she's done with purchasing. As we have new projects like solar, replacing generators, we don't always have scope of work to base on our solicitation documentation. So she connects to other cities, researches other projects, and does a phenomenal job helping us set up for good success for our solicitation. So those are just a few stats before we get into the slide. Most of the projects you're going to be familiar with because we're here twice a month talking to you about these projects, from applications to grants to next steps from design phase to construction. Primarily what I want to look at today, and then you guys can ask questions on any of them though, is some of our new projects and the reality that on our projects, the average project cost is $2.4 million. That's a higher dollar amount than what it's always been in the past. And higher level projects, have more complexities and require a little more focus and a little more attention. So that's just good to know. So some of our new projects that we have in the pipeline are the police /fire boathouse. So that's a part of that together. We've talked to both, and we're working in the directions for what that looks like, and have had further discussions with design firms to get those projects going. The Sun Trail, $16.1 million. That's waiting for the final approval of the grant, which is supposed to be sometime in this July. Is that correct, Chad? And if that is approved in July, we'll start the process for that project. David Ray did a great job of getting a $3.5 million grant for some dredging at various locations. So kudos to David and his hard work. So that money's already been given to us, and we're already through some of the solicitation process for getting that project up and going. We have, some other projects from aquacourt, septic to sewer, to solar, to generators, to small park projects that are all new and on the docket that we're kind of working through the initial details of how those are going to look and how they'll be funded. Any questions on the new projects before I go to the next slide? Cool. All right, projects that kind of are in our concept phase are mainly dredging and stormwater, and that's because we're wrapping up design on those and getting them into the design phase and getting our solicitation ready for what the scope of work will be. Projects that are in design. Went too far. We have quite a few projects in the design phase right now. With all of our design firms, we're meeting bi-weekly. So every other week we meet with them to review what their current status is, provide instant feedback, and start working through details so that we get those projects moving along quickly. Some of them, like the AOB Phase 1 site, was dormant for a long time, and it's now at 100% and almost ready to go out for a construction solicitation. We have 3 projects in our bid award phase that are getting ready for construction. We have more than this, what it's showing right now in construction. We actually have about 12 projects in construction, but there's many of them that are going to be done before the fiscal year's over, so I didn't include those projects because it's not going to impact next year's budget. Yes?
The Hazard 21 HMP, is that for Irma, Idalia, Ian, or Nicole?
21, which one is that in?
The hazard, no.
In construction?
Yeah,
Yep.
hazard mitigation, home elevation.
For which hurricane was that from?
Yeah.
I was going to ask Kyle if he was still here, but he's not. I don't remember which hurricane that was from.
I mean, since we have them in for Irma.
Typically, the 2021s are from Irma.
They are, Irma was 17.
No, but the
These are
project number
17.
are for Hurricane Irma.
Thank you. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, you betcha. And then the airport, which Arvin went over some of their projects, has a handful of projects as well that are in our capital project fund. As you can see, go through these slides. I won't bore you with the numbers on every single slide, and we have too many projects to bring pictures for every single project. But if there's a specific project that's important to you, that you have questions on or want to talk about and discuss in more detail, I'm happy to take your questions on those type of things.
Vice Mayor.
I'm speechless. We're going to
Nailed
miss
it.
you. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner
Commissioner
Breen.
Martin.
Same thing, we're going to miss you.
I'm going to miss you guys.
Good.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hartman.
Wish you the best.
Thank you, sir.
And Chad, a lot of, and to Jess, both you guys, a lot of moving parts of this, and you have upped our game considerably. If these all come through, it'll be totally amazing where we are now to where we're going to take the city. So, very inspired to what you started, and we want to keep the momentum going. And thank you for getting us to this point. I'm looking forward to next year, and please come back and look at us and see what your man's doing. He's going to going to do you proud. We're delighted that you guys were a team here for so long.
I do have one.
Ma'am.
Yeah, I noticed on the 21 HDR that on the bid award phase, it does show that the funding source is the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program grant. But then the next page, the elevation shows funding from general fund reserves.
That was what the commission decision at the time, if you remember. They wanted to
Well, I
use
knew
that.
there was a maximum, what was it, a maximum of 35,000 per house?
It was 12.5%, up to 35,000.
Correct.
So the maximum is 35, but if the cost is less than 35, that's how much we pay them.
So what we're saying is, how many houses are there in number 3?
I don't have the exact number.
Do you remember?
For the newest one that's in the bid award phase right now?
No, the
No,
oldest
the
one.
old one. I know we started with 30 and then it dropped
Yeah, no, I
down.
was just, we've gone through a couple of
Yeah.
phases of this with the elevation. I'm just trying to figure out, how many houses that $1 million
Yeah.
plus.
Well, it doesn't mean that you will spend that. I mean, we only spend what we need, so it's not, I mean, you allowed us to spend, but we haven't taken out yet.
I believe it, Commissioner Martin, I believe it was 9. 9 homes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Jess. Appreciate it.
Well, I'll just say this, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Hartman, it's been good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, pal.
And Mayor, shout out to Jesse and Chad, since they've been here. As you look at the list, there is a lot of projects on the list that it's a diverse list. And so shout out to both of them. Chad came in almost the day that Todd was leaving. We wish Jesse a good luck, and also we will encourage Chad to continue what he's doing at best. So a lot of grants he applied for. He's actually going this Friday down to the Find Board. So good luck.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, last and certainly least is the fire department.
9 times 35 is only 315,000, not over $1 million. So I'm trying to figure out.
It's the construction cost, because what happened is we pay up front, remember, and then we get reimbursed.
I understand, but you're showing it both hazard mitigation and general fund. So,
But that's correct.
Caught you right up, didn't we?
Well, good afternoon. According to Kelly, this is now working, so we're gonna give it a try.
I think we're
I
doing
did
so
turn
good,
on.
we're back on track now.
yeah.
Magic.
It's 3:10 and they're supposed to start at 3:10. So. Come on, Sean, don't mess it up.
Yeah, we're fixing the
So it's nice there that this works as well as the one that Brandon Center does.
Somebody unplugged the dongle, apparently.
That would make a difference, wouldn't it?
There we go.
Magic.
Well, to keep us on track, we're going to go through the quick demographics really quickly. The one addition that we have this year that we did not have last year for demographics internally was the addition of the Fire Training Division Chief. Raquel Delgado came on board with us internally from our ranks for Division Chief of Training and Safety, and has done a phenomenal job up to this point. You'll see in the very near future here in this presentation some of the things that she's shaping to help the safety and training of the guys and girls you have out there working for you right now. All right. In 2023, we ran 6,300 calls, did 1,964 patient transports with our one ambulance. We run one ambulance in New Smyrna Beach. That's 1,964 patients that we took to the hospital in that 12-month period and had 113 working fires. There's a breakdown of all the other call volume that we have in there. We can obviously you have that printed out in front of you, but it gets kind of down into the to the guts of what we do on a daily basis. Here's a comparison of the 3-year budget cycle. Let's jump to the middle one first, which is EOC. The EOC we always have it parceled out like that, primarily because it has no personnel attached to it. That's our emergency management. How we operate during hurricanes, natural disasters, wildfires, things like that. You'll see, a increase throughout the last couple of years, primarily because of just technology changes that have happened out there at the EOC to help us combat or be prepared for incidents, especially with the potential for an explosive hurricane season. On the top line, fire department budget, that is the firefighting staff, not including our transport component, the people who take patients to and from the hospital. That's our staffing model there. You'll see the increases throughout the tailing years there. That's the contract-driven increases that came along with the contract negotiations, similar to what the police department presented. Operating expenses went up $400,000. That's cost of materials, goods, fuel, things like that. And then on the bottom is the transport division, fire transport division. In the next couple slides, we're gonna demonstrate that particular budget actually is actually operating in the black in most cases. So, and Dan will be able to really delve into that because I think that's going to be probably the most significant ask of this upcoming fiscal year is to pay attention to what we're doing in the ambulance transport business and how we can improve the quality of life here in New Smyrna Beach for no cost. All right, significant requests this year. The addition of a second EMS transport unit. We're going to delve into that in just a minute. As far as capital, 2 new ambulances, one being a replacement ambulance that Kevin Brinkley had talked about earlier, and the second one being the additional transport unit that we're going to be requesting. New set of extrication tools. That is the Jaws of Life, which is actually a trademark term, but the Jaws of Life that we use for vehicle extrication, car crashes, and things of that nature. Training division software and equipment upgrade for training division. A supply room addition at Station 50. That's a climate-controlled EMS supplies and things like that to provide both climate control and security for those goods that we have. The Station 53 generator replacement that Kevin had spoken to earlier today. We're going to delve into that in just a minute. The water heaters at Station 50. There's another slide for that one. You will see on that slide there are 9 water heaters at Station 50, and they are all in different stages of failure. It's an interesting system, not one that I'm hugely a fan of, but I'm not an engineer or an architect, and that's how it was built. Breathing air cascade system, we'll talk about that in a minute. Station alerting and a replacement shed, steel type building at Station 53. All right, I'm going to pass off like I said, this is probably our biggest undertaking for this upcoming year, and I'm going to pass it off to Dan, who has done a significant job of just framing this, talking about vision, and just demonstrating the fact that we can do a drastic increase in quality of life element for New Smyrna Beach with no cost. Dan.
Okay. Good afternoon. All right, so we spoke a few weeks ago, give you a kind of an overview of what we were going to be coming to you requesting for the addition of a second transport unit. Some of the numbers for the personal services have changed, working with HR and finance, a couple minor items that were not included in my cost analysis. So it does change the chart a little bit, but still keeps us operating efficiently and then for the most part in the black. I'll show you in just a second. To give you a quick overview, the transports within the city of New Smyrna Beach, I want to make sure it's important to note in the presentation, all the data that we collected is from the county. The county controls our reporting software. It's not something internal for us. The county actually, we work off of their system. So all the stats are actually from the county. So I requested everything. They without any issue, they volunteered the information to us. They gave us everything exported into an Excel spreadsheet of every single EMS call that is run within the city limits, not the unincorporated areas, but just in the city limits of New Smyrna Beach. So you'll see here in a second when I say New Smyrna Beach transported 1,646 patients of the 3,093. So at the beginning, the numbers that Chief read off were that we ran almost 2,000 transports. The additional 300 plus patients transported by Medic 50 were outside of the city limits. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
So is that the donut hole in the middle of the city?
The donut hole, Station 21's
Okay.
area. Anytime if we run
So any unincorporated Volusia County property?
Yep,
Okay.
correct. Yep, that's correct.
Could I just ask?
Yeah,
We're doing so well through the day and to hold our questions to the end.
That's okay. No, go right ahead.
What
Okay.
is E1E?
I will get to, I will
Thank
cover
you.
that for you. I know exactly where you're going.
Thank you.
Okay, so the 4,644 911 calls for service in the city limits, in which we required an EMS unit to be dispatched. So when the call taker receives the call, they determine whether it's just going to be a fire truck that goes and does a medical checkup on a patient or helps a person back into bed, or they determine if it's a call that they deem an ambulance is necessary. So of the 3,093 transports, there was actually a total of 4,644 calls where an ambulance was actually dispatched in our city limits. Of those, Medic 50 responded to 2,436 of those. Next slide. Okay, so what's that? Yeah, I'm going to get to that right here on this one. So to answer your question, the calls are broken down. I'm not sure the name of the program that the county uses. It's an older system, but based on the information that the caller gives during the 911 call, each call is classified based on essentially a category. E for being, say, like the most critical, cardiac arrest, severe trauma. 1E being, say, like a chest pain, shortness of breath. Those calls are the ones that are going to require the lights and sirens, the emergency response. We start getting into the 2s, 3s, and 4s, you're talking the non-emergent calls. Still requiring an ambulance to respond, but not needing to go lights and sirens and putting people in. And quite honestly, it's actually, that's a great way of handling business. We don't need to be going lights and sirens to every single call. But it doesn't take away the fact that at the time, those people calling 911 still feel like they have an emergency, and we have a responsibility to go see them. So I have the overall response time averages, the emergent and critical, non-emergent, just as I described. Let's see. So the data that we provided by Volusia County, let's see. If you look at the overall numbers, so the first graph is the EMS response time average to all calls in the city limits. So you look at each department, you've got the average in blue, New Smyrna Beach in red, Volusia County EMS is the gray, Volusia County Fire, they get dispatched, and that's usually Medic 44, is it? Medic, well, 44 out of... okay, yeah. 22. That's not to be confused with Volusia County EMS. Volusia County EMS and Volusia County Fire. Volusia County Fire has 2 transport units, so every once in a while they'll get dispatched to our city as well. Port Orange Fire and then Edgewater Fire Department in green. So each one is broken down on the average response time based on the overall for the first one. So you look and see our average response time overall is 6 minutes and 32 seconds. For the emergent / critical, so that's the E's, the 1E's, our overall average response time is, I can't read that, 6 minutes, 8 seconds, 6:04. Volusia County has an average response time for those same category of calls in the city of 7 minutes, 13 seconds. Now, this is not to disparage our agencies that work with us. Edgewater's responding from a much further distance. That's why their response times are going to be higher to our city. The same with Volusia County, Port Orange, and so forth. The non-emergent calls, same system, but you look at a pretty drastic increase in our average response time is close to 7 minutes. What does that say? 7:34. But again, Volusia County's now jumping up all the way up to. Oh, I am blind. 13 and a half, 13.4, 13 minutes, 46 seconds. And the reason for that is once the call is classified as non-emergent, Volusia County could have an advanced life support unit 2 blocks away from that call, but they'll have a BLS unit up in Daytona and they'll dispatch that unit instead. So now the patients in the non-emergent category are waiting longer for those ambulances to get there.
And the reason why that would be happening, why we would be relying on Volusia County EMS for that is because our ambulance is already tied up on an incident that has happened, 5 minutes prior to. So the fact that our one med unit is tied up, now the Volusia County EMS becomes the fallback for our present system.
Yep. The financial analysis just gives you a quick overview of what we currently are collecting in our collection rate. So the 2023 EMS transport revenue, my numbers are a little bit different, I think, than Shaliza, what you had in the system. So this is based on the receipts that we received from the county. I believe you actually showed it as a little bit more. I think you had a tad bit more. So currently, the collection rate for the county, they charge us 10%. We're happy to say, though, and I don't know if they signed it, that is actually dropping to 7.5%, so that'll be a savings we get as well, which is a good thing. So for fiscal year 23, showing a net revenue from what we budgeted for the actual transport unit for all the staffing and supplies and fuel and maintenance, we netted $190,000 off Medic 50. Again, we decreased from 10 to 7.5. Right now, year to date, from October to present, compared to last year, our collection rate is already up by 12.33%. So based on that, we should see another significant increase this year. The addition of an additional transport unit. So what we're asking for total is 9 personnel and 1 EMS officer, 9 shift personnel and 1 EMS officer, total of $963,168.39. But at the same time, we're based on that, because obviously it's only 2 people per shift for the ambulance. What we're looking at is asking for 9 to have 3 per shift to allow us to reduce our overtime budget by $224,000. We think that'll be, we'll still operate, we believe, in the black and be able to reduce our overtime budget significantly, which also reduces the demand as far as the amount of mandatory overtime that we have, which helps reduce the stress and strain on our firefighters. The operations cost, I mirrored it to the current budget for the 6,986 vehicle maintenance, the fuel, and then medical supplies. Total proposed budget, $983,000. So what I did is we have no way of knowing exactly how many calls this new unit will run. I will say that Volusia County, in our discussions with them, their plan, they want us to take this additional put this additional unit on the road. It helps the county system as a whole. Currently, Medic 23 is stationed out of Fire Station 23. That's where they start their day at. That unit would eventually, after we put ours on the road, would be moved, relocated somewhere else. So we're going to go with a bottom number of 85% to be conservative. But if you asked me, what do I think we'll run call-wise based on the other call volumes and stats that they gave us, I would be comfortable with saying somewhere in the 90 to 95. To me, there's potentially, once Medic 23 gets moved, I think that the new unit could actually run more than what Medic 50 is running. So the numbers we have for you basically are based on the current collection rate and then the call volume of each one. So if we ran 90% of what Medic 50 ran, based on the current collection rate, we would still net $31,000. If we ran 100%, if we ran the same number of transports, then we would net $118,000 overall. So overall, for the EMS transport unit, we're asking to add the 1 unit, the hiring of the 9 people, and the 1 EMS officer, reduce the overtime budget. Just so everybody's aware, we agree with the county as far as the placement. They want us to put it at Station 52 Beachside. We believe that's the best location for it as well. The purchase of the additional ambulance transport unit, which we've spoken to Kevin, and believe that as long as legal signs off, that we believe that impact fees can be used for that purchase of that truck, so it won't affect the general revenue budget. And then most of the supplies to stock the unit will come from the existing stock. The only item the big purchase item that we would need to purchase is the monitor, the defibrillator monitor. And in previous talks with the county, they have indicated that they would possibly be willing to use state EMS grant funds to fund that particular item. I think this goes along with what the other, yeah, okay. Did you want to?
And I think, like, right now, Mr. Mayor, maybe a good time to pause, and because there is a lot of moving parts to this, and to be able to answer any questions you have.
Sure. This is just for the additional unit, right?
Yeah.
Which you
Correct.
pre-briefed us on.
Correct.
Vice Mayor, anything on this one?
I just have a quick question. It seems like we had a lot of fires this year, big fires. You have 113. Do you know what last year's number was?
I don't offhand.
I believe it was 87 or 89 fires.
87 or 89?
It's either 87 or 89 last calendar year, correct?
That's quite a bit more this year.
Correct.
And they were like big buildings too.
Yeah.
Well, there's always certain buildings that get a little more attention than others.
Yeah.
So.
True that. I don't have anything.
Commissioner Hartman.
Does the county use the EMD dispatch?
So they do not. They use a system that is an old system that is no longer supported by anybody. What is it? APCO? Yeah, which went out of business, I guess, quite a long time ago. They are utilizing the old system. We have been asking that at every single county fire chiefs meeting since the day I started here 2.5 years ago. They keep assuring us that when the new CAD system is installed, that they will be upgrading the EMD to the actual EMD software that most people are accustomed to seeing.
Scary.
Yes, sir.
How often does Medicare adjust their rates? Do you know?
Offhand, no. Usually, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they do it annually, but at the same time, it's up to the agency to determine if they're going to increase their rate as well. And I know Medicare isn't too fond of like one-time adjustments every 10 years where you increase it a significant amount, because Medicare is only going to allow for an increase on your side by a certain margin. So agencies that try to jump 100% in one shot, they tend to frown at.
Is the majority of our collection based on private payer?
Private insurance,
Private
yeah,
insurance?
private insurance and
Okay.
Medicare. I mean, I could get you guys a breakdown, but I will say we're very fortunate. That's the one advantage. We're very, very fortunate that we have a very good payer mix. A lot of agencies don't have the kind of collection rate we have here. And I will say that the county, because we operate under the county COPCN, we're utilizing their system, but fortunately the county they don't do hard billing. They do soft billing, which is why you don't get complaints. At least I would hope you don't get complaints from people, complaining about being sent to collections for their ambulance bill.
Do we want to have that conversation now or later?
No.
So the new ambulance, doesn't include the defibrillator, but it does include the stretcher?
Yeah, that includes the power load system
load
and everything,
stretcher.
yeah. So I actually, so my numbers, Kevin's been doing a little bit more research to try and find the cost. My numbers on the ambulance costs are a little bit low. They probably will be around $450 to $480 is what he's telling me, versus I think, put $420 for the cost of an ambulance now. I hate to say, but I remember the first ambulance I bought was only $75,000. So
I probably have a spreadsheet that can get you down to the very last Band-Aid if you want.
yeah, I bet.
Are there any obese stretcher transport units? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I believe that.
So Volusia County has two what they call bariatric units.
Bariatrics, yeah.
However, our power loaders that we now use are capable of doing 650 pounds. So there's only a small patient panel between 650 and 1,000 pounds that need that service. We don't have it. We haven't seen a demonstrated need here in New Smyrna. So,
Okay.
but there is two within Volusia County that are
Yeah.
Where are they located at, you know?
Post one for the east side. I know that.
Okay.
I believe the other one's over on the West Deltona or something.
I think that's all I had on that.
Ultimately, I mean, the ultimate goal is not to try and make the fire department bigger just to make it bigger. The idea is that we see an opportunity, the county has a need, we have an opportunity to improve the level of service by adding a unit essentially at no additional cost to the city taxpayer.
But realistically, the county should be kicking in some of their fire tax money in for the transports that we do in the donut hole, the unincorporated Volusia County of New Smyrna Beach.
I understand.
Yes.
That's a whole other discussion.
Another discussion.
I do know that and I have no idea what their timeline is, but I do know that the county in their plan is to move Station 23 out to 415.
Okay. The other thing that I think Kevin brought it up, was where the ambulance transported
Yes.
to. That's a concern. If we're going up there to drop off and pick up, and they're non-emergency patients, there needs to be an agreement with the county that we're only going to transport to the closest facility that provides that care.
For the vast majority of our transports are to the local hospital. We have, the trauma alerts that go up to 704 up to Halifax. And then the occasional where we have a patient that absolutely needs to go, say, to Advent Daytona or something like that.
Saw a couple to Advent up in Ormond, so it's like.
Yeah. So it's definitely, the vast majority, though, I definitely go locally. If we have a patient that, because from a customer service standpoint, we have a patient that whose doctor's up there, who just had surgery up there. We want to make sure that we're not sending them somewhere where they're going to have to sit in the hallway for 4 hours and then get transferred out and get another bill. But for the most part, most of our patients will go here to the local hospital.
Okay. And Commissioner Hartman, I think it's important to understand that we don't do any inter-facility. So we do not go to hospitals to pick up patients to move them to another hospital. We only make house calls. Absolutely. So we only make house calls. We do not do inter-facilities like EVAC or Volusia County EMS does. So. And they would never relinquish that to us anyways, because for obvious reasons.
That's it. Thanks.
Commissioner Martin?
Couple of things. One, I'd like to say how impressed I was by the containment of the Pappas fire. The fact that not a sign, it doesn't look like any particle outside of that building was damaged, and it was very impressive to have that much containment for that large a fire. It occurs to me that the response time for New Smyrna should be a really good advertisement for annexing into the city. Want a quick response? Join the city. Okay, Station 52 status. We've talked for years, and FDOT has approved a traffic light for 3rd Avenue in front of 52. And especially if we had an ambulance there, I wonder what the thoughts are now to having that traffic light installed.
So obviously we have always been in the talks of having a traffic light there, more vehemently when we had the hotel project across the street. And a lot of the desire was contingent on the hotel and the interface, if you will, between our fire trucks and the traffic there. With the hotel being on hold for an undisclosed amount of time, the need for the traffic light is still present. Having talked to my crews who actually operate out of that station, they do not have the difficulty that you would assume that they would. Getting across the street, especially to that eastbound turn. So the traffic light, as much as I would love to see it, is not a hot button topic for them. And they're the ones who are crossing that intersection. So.
And I absolutely trust you. Do you think the ambulance would make a difference if we had an ambulance station
would the need for the traffic light increase? Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. Sure.
So we may want to think of that light in conjunction with the
Sure.
addition of the ambulance.
Sure. We also have the various promises from DOT and the hotel and all that we're
Well,
going to.
let's take the hotel out of the whole equation, because we don't even know if there'll be a hotel there.
Correct.
But yeah, so thank you, and I hope we will take some action on having in concert, the ambulance and the traffic light in concert with each other.
But
Thanks.
Just a side note, because that's the decision that it's going to be, we have to make at some point. And I know you want to put the Hyatt on the side, but we signed an agreement with them. The traffic lights we installed
With whom did we sign an agreement?
with the Hyatt.
With the Hyatt Hotel or with the owners of the property?
Well, with the owner of the property.
So if the owner of the property is no longer the owner of the property, where would that agreement
If
stand?
he sells the property,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this would transfer with it, because that's part of the project. The cost for the one that we installed at Station 50 was $690,000, and I know the cost has gone up as well. So we have a design agreement that it was almost ready to go before they stopped. So, I mean, it's quite a bit even on the design side of it. So if that's something the commission wishes to bring back, we'll bring back, because that's an expense that we have to do.
It is
So-
expensive, but on the other hand, I have to think that if the sale went through today, it would be, 5 years before, and they wanted to keep it a hotel, and the Hyatt people wanted to keep it, it would be at best 5 years. And that's an awful lot of ambulance runs.
If I recall, it would not be, if they start today to build, for example.
No, I said if they sold it today.
Oh.
We
but
have to
it's
sell
Supposed
it?
to be, they would not get their CO unless if we do that, so that was the deal.
I hear you. I'm just worried about the staff and the response time in the interim for the many residents.
Yeah, and I know former Commissioner Sachs, he emailed this morning.
Yeah.
So if the commission desire to bring it back, we'll bring it back as an agenda item, and then you could work on, and we could move forward on the design, so.
Thanks, guys. Picking up on Commissioner Hartman's remark. So the county, if we get the second truck, you think that we will handle 100% or nearly 100% of the city of New Smyrna demand?
That's correct, and including some of the donut hole, if you will, areas, because Volusia County EMS will no longer be the closest unit, and by ordinance, we have to run the closest EMS unit to the closest EMS call.
Right.
And it's good practice, to
So
do.
we got cities there are cities in the county that don't have units at all, and they only use the county?
Correct. So Edgewater and New Smyrna both do it. Port Orange has one EMS transport unit. That's the entire East Coast. Deltona is the only other one that does what we're doing.
So where I was headed, I was assuming that that we take up 100% of the load. Wouldn't it stands to reason in my tiny little mind that the county should offer a contribution?
There's no agency that's done that up to this point, and certainly not something that could come from my office. That would have to take some finagling into land of somebody with a much more pull than I have.
Yeah, I'm not proposing you did anything. It just doesn't seem like today they're required to provide a service, and then we're going to alleviate their demand to require
So I'm
a
just
service.
thinking
Yeah.
that they are outsourcing to New Smyrna Beach.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you pay to outsource.
Yeah. I don't know how to get there, but it seemed like there's some money
And
in
they
there
collect
somewhere.
tax money, revenue, to provide that service.
That's right. So that is, like it or not, we will continue to pay the tax revenue
correct.
for that service to other
That's correct.
cities.
That's correct.
That doesn't feel right either. I don't know how to get there, but.
But to work that opposite, they pay us if we pick up that load,
Well, that's
correct?
the point. That is the point, I think, for the donut hole. I don't know how, I don't know what kind of agreement we could strike, but I think in conjunction with what we're getting ready to, this gift we're getting ready to give the county of not having this demand, we should certainly work on our negotiation skills. I don't know how to get there, but of saying, okay, but for all these little, I don't know how many calls a year to the donut hole?
That's the one item that it was not intentional on their part. When we took all the numbers in, the one thing that was not generated were the calls outside of the city limits. We can get those.
How many times do you respond?
So, I can tell you that for the transport wise, if I go back to Medic 50.
I do. Okay, good. Good.
That's the number of transports. So we ran out of the, what was it? So we ran 22,436 calls, and we transported close to 1,900, so another 500 calls that we ran. But total, outside of the city limits, we had, what did I say? Initially was, because it was, I don't have anything with the unincorporated area, so Station 21's area, Station 23's area, I don't have that. It's just, other than the transports, we had the additional 300 transports that we know were outside of the city limits, but, so.
Just seems like a double hit to me. I didn't even think about, we will continue to respond outside of our city limits?
That's part of.
Public
just-
safety does not know any boundaries. I get that.
Yeah.
That's the goodness of being a public, a steward of the whole. But for them to now, we're going to respond outside, they're not going to respond inside because we're the best deal.
Well,
And we will continue to pay taxes on,
Yeah.
on that service. I don't like it.
And they will still, at the times where both of our medic units are busy, they'll still be sending their units to New Smyrna Beach. Just the same, right now, Edgewater added a second transport unit this year. And we're still running, Medic 50 still having to run down to Edgewater when both of their units are tied up. So,
All righty. Those are my comments. Anybody else will follow? All right. Is there more, guys?
There's more to the presentation, nothing more with the transport component of the presentation. So I just want to make sure that we pause there because I think this is an opportunity to provide a much better service, much better quality of life, and at no cost.
I'm with you, but I think eventually you'll hear a demand to the city manager from the commission to
find
have
a
the
way.
staff research how we can make this work out not as lopsided as it appears today.
Understood. Very good. As far as the train division goes, Raquel has taken this on, has requested the purchase of a simulation software that allows us to do simulated fire training that we can't do because we can no longer burn houses down that, intentionally burn houses down for training. That is a software that we can actually utilize without having to burn actual homes down. Vector Solutions is our training platform. We use to track all of our ISO training, annual renewals, things like that. And then just some additional training props, materials, other things like that at the $17,000 mark. Over at Station 50, we have, for those of you who are familiar, we have the steel building outside. It's a 3 apparatus bay building. We want to put a containment, like a warehouse office almost inside, so it can be climate controlled, secured. This will be permitted work. Obviously, putting any kind of structure on a city property will be permitted work, and we're looking at probably around $25,000 for a 12 by 24. That'll go inside of the building, so it's basically a warehouse office, if you will, for those of you who worked in that field. Like I discussed earlier, we have 9 water heaters. These are gas-powered Renai type heaters at Station 50. They're all in various degrees of failing, and when one fails, apparently the computer makes the other one's alarm as well. The cost for that project was $30,000, Kevin? $30,000 for that replacement. And we're looking at possibly doing it this year if we can find the funds for it, but that's still up in the air. As Kevin talked about early this morning, seems like a long time ago, the replacement generator at Station 53, we're looking at changing this to natural gas generator. That gives us the reliability of natural gas, no more diesel, no more aging fuel. This is on the HMGP grant process inside the Volusia County LEPC. They have a priority list of about 15 items. We are number 5 on their priority list, which is a good place to be. We're working with Pegasus as a consultant to actually draft that grant so we can successfully get this done by grant funding and not by millage rate increase. Breathing air cascade system. This unit we have right now fills all of our air bottles, kind of like a scuba tank. It's 27 years old. It is still running, still working the way it's intended to, but parts are no longer available. We're anticipating a failure at some point, so we want to get in front of you to start working on replacement of this. This thing is 27 years old and it runs almost daily. The cost to replace is $85,000. We also, at times, use it to fill City of Edgewater when their compressor's down, and the Utilities Commission air bottles. There's a county mandated station alerting upgrade that has to happen. With the new CAD system, they are going to similar to a voice over IP alerting system. When we do that, there is a need to upgrade the system we have currently. The county is funding the the backbone of that inside each firehouse, regardless of what municipality you are. So the backbone of that alerting system is getting installed by the county at their expense. However, the various components like turning the lights on, activating, deactivating the stove, for example, which is a fire hazard. Deactivating the stove is an added interface that they will not provide for it. So we're looking at probably about $20,000 per fire station to get the alerting software or alerting system upgraded to where it needs to be to meet the new standard. And then lastly, lastly, we have a storage shed at 53. What we have right now is basically what I call a tube and sheet metal building. It is just an awning. Regardless of what happens in the future, I'm going to recommend we tear that building down in the next couple of weeks. It has become such a hazard, and with a hurricane season coming, it will not withstand. It won't withstand a summer storm right now. All the bracing is rusted and has come apart. So my intent, no matter where we go with the replacement, is to go ahead and pull this thing out of the ground and be done with it. This will be a shared facility with the PD and myself, or the department, and our part cannot come out of impact fees because we're not doing a growth necessitated need. However, the police department's portion of the building should be able to be impact fee because it will store the Bearcat, which is purchased out of impact fee. And that is all we have.
Okay, questions and comments from the commission. Vice Mayor.
I don't have any, thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Martin.
I'm good, thanks.
Commissioner Harton.
I'm good.
I'm good. Thank you guys for your
Thank you.
time. Thank you for both being here all day. Appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Save the best for last.
Of course.
So there's a summary, and I'm assuming that Shaliza, you're the batter on this, yeah?
No, this is where we get the good news.
And then we'll have comments.
Shoot, and I'm doing this again.
You pay an emergency tax. The county residents pay the fire tax. So they're paying, so. No.
All right, so just to kind of give a recap of everything that was presented today, what I did was list out everything that would affect general fund from each of the departments that presented. So starting off with maintenance ops, you can see the list here. And with a total of $6.3 million that they're asking for. Leisure services, $2.45 million. Golf course, $784,000. The police department, $1.3 million. Administrative services, which is $222,000. Fire department of 1.6, which we would have a potential of a possible grant, so that could be reduced. And then with the director listing request for $73,000. So with all of those requests, it sums up to about $12 million. And what I did was I took current operating costs, estimated it at a 10% increase. So we're looking at about 16 million. For personnel and benefits, I took the current staff and added in 3% for our 3% increase and 5% for benefits or the healthcare increase that we're probably going to get. So with a total of an 8% increase, we're looking at $30 million in estimated personnel costs. At a total of $60 million if we were to accept all the requests. And Khalid will take it from here.
I'm so glad that we did this. As you could see, the list is large list. And adding up to the amount that you've seen. So if you added up all the items that's the wish list, that is $12,910,602. Now, assuming that based on the projection of what we get in terms of revenue, in tax revenue for next year, the difference between what was asked and requested and what we will be getting, which is 2.58 million. So you're looking at a difference of 10,326,371. Now, what I did too is every tenth of a mil is 681,160. So let's assume, which is I don't think we'll do that, but let's assume that we take every request we have. That will add 1.52 mil. Currently, our millage is 4.4150. Now, I mentioned earlier that we have the 0.22, which that is a must based on the commitment we made. That has to be added to the millage. So if I add that to the millage, our millage will become, that's not doing anything, 4.6370. Adding 1.52 to it, that's significant. So I cannot tell you how glad I am that we have this. This way you can see the list. I think it just makes our job easier when we present the budget in June, because now I know where you stand on some of these items. I will be meeting with the department heads within the next week or two. We'll be going through these items one by one. I have not seen these items until today, just so you would know. So this is a wish list that was submitted. We'll be going through it item by item. As you can see, every budget is a challenge. This one is another challenge. But I just want to see what is your appetite on some of these items. For example, you take maintenance op. If you go back to the list, I have asked Shaliza to highlight them in red. So if you look in maintenance op, this was previously requested in 2024 budget. That is by itself 2.7 million. That is more than what I'm getting in terms of the tax revenue. And the list goes on and on in terms of whether it's a project, whether it's an item that it's a maintenance item, it's a replacement item. If you go back, go up to the leisure services. So leisure services, that was the sport complex LED lights that we kind of postponed from last year. Go up more. So you could see it's only the two items that were from last year, but they're significant. Now, does these projects is needed? Probably the lights are, because we've been waiting on the lights for quite some time. There is options if the commission is interested. I will bring some options for you later on in terms of how we could fund it. But going back to Commissioner Martin's question was, well, we only paid 35,000 times 9. But if you recall, we have to have a budget and a purchase order for the entire projects, and then we get reimbursed. So that's why you see the amount there, that it's over $2 million.
Yeah, it just implies that that's gone when we know that we should be reimbursed for a large part of that. So
Yeah.
it's a different, like if we buy a street light, we're not going to get any money in the future to
yeah,
have
it's
to recoup that cost.
It's a one item. Now, The other thing I want to point out is Smith Street. Smith Street is, we have relocated building maintenance from there to maintenance operation. That property becomes available for the city to, whether to lease or to sell. So that's another revenue that it was not counted in this budget at all. So you have that as a revenue source. David is we're waiting on another quote on the demolition. He was hoping that we will have a bid for the demolition. However, my understanding, I'm not sure if anybody, I think we only had one bid. So we're working on that. As soon as we get that, I'll bring it back to the commission as an agenda item for you to consider some of the options that I prepared for you.
What about that property at US 1 in West Canal? If we're not going to use it, and we clearly have not, the parking lot.
Well, that's, I mean, it's at the time, that was the, trying to think of the business that was
It seemed like a good idea at the time. It was a lumber yard there, but apparently it wasn't a good idea, so.
Well, but I think that besides that, I think it was bought for two reasons. The DOT wanted to have additional right-of-way to do the intersection improvement. So it was bought by a CRA funding. We sold a strip of it to DOT, and the other portion of it, it was suggested by the commission and the CRA board at the time that, hey, parking becoming an issue, this is vacant property, the easiest way is to create parking, and that's what happened. Now, do you want to sell that parking lot?
But, now in retrospect, maybe it is surplus property that could be sold to add more revenue.
So, Mayor, with that, we will, when we come back in June and submit the budget, I think I just need to, from your discussion, based on what you've seen, I mean, obviously, the 2.5 million does not cover not even one-tenth of what was requested. So I just need some, it doesn't have to be very specific, but give me some guidelines on where do you want to see this budget when it's submitted. Like, there are some items there that you want to say, hey, I want this item there. Tell me how can I get to it.
Do you want us to work off this summary sheet?
Please. And then what I could do is at one of the next city commission meeting, I could maybe either at the city manager report or maybe at the end of the meeting, if we have some time, we could go through it.
I have a few questions for Khalid.
Yes, ma'am.
This 60 million, I call this kind of like first pass, you call it wish list. It's just when everybody throws everything out there for a scattergraph, but we're at 60 million this year. What were we at last year with our very first pass wish list? How much?
50.
50. So we're more
minus, I guess, the request that we have now. We should take the 2.7 and take the the one for leisure services. That's 700? So take $2.5 million, $3 million out of it.
So, for example, Commissioner Martin made a comment about a cell. The exit building, that money has to go back into the budget where like a traffic light would come out of.
That would go to the transportation impact fees.
So with that type of thing, we know we're going to hopefully get funds for that. Is there any of these items that could come out of that transportation budget? Nothing.
No, because
only what she wanted with the traffic light.
Yeah, the traffic light could come out of the transportation impact fees. Okay. If you're adding the traffic light, if you're adding additional lane, because it's a restricted fund, so there's a specific use for it. So the traffic light would, sure. But something else.
Nothing else.
No, I cannot put for example, a street light or something like that. I cannot do that.
The $16 million operating budget that you have this year, what was that last year when we started doing our line item slashes?
Yeah,
how much were we able to regain from those line item analysis that we did from the board?
I think it's probably less 10%.
So,
10% to
yes,
it.
Yes, what we ended up adopting was about 14.9 million.
So $1.5 million, we were able to maybe shave off, that we might be able to shave off of this by doing line items.
So that 16 is just a 10% estimate on,
It's a projection.
Right.
yeah, increases.
And we know that not all costs will go up 10%.
Right.
All these numbers, by the way, all these numbers are projected numbers. And also keep in mind, when you see an estimated cost, I mean, this is an estimated cost. When you put it out to bid, I don't guarantee that it's going to come at that number. But this is staff's to their best ability to come up with a number, just so you could have a number as an estimated cost. So anyway, this is all estimated, all projected.
Sure. And in June, you said when we go to submit the budget, where will we stand, hopefully, with our new city manager? What time frame will that person be?
You will be doing the interviews in June 7th and 8th. Assuming that you have selected someone as a body and you have a contract, but probably, will be maybe at the end of June, maybe you might have a contract, or maybe the beginning of July.
I'm just wondering if that person's going to have any input on, especially this portion of like the department head information. Sure. They're going to have their own input. And
well, if everything goes well, you have 55 applicants. So if you select one and you have the interviews and the commission select one, my assumption that the second meeting in June, I'm hoping, or maybe if you have a special meeting in July, that you might have someone.
I guess going through this on the leisure, I was hoping that our revenues would be a lot more than what they were to offset some of this 2.4 million. Yeah. This was a big shock to me. Yeah. And disappointment, actually.
Yeah. And again, believe me, since I got to where I'm at, it's been my goal, especially the Brannan Center and other areas. But the Brannan Center, I think there's a potential. The sport complex, as I mentioned earlier, I think there's a potential to increase, but I don't, unless if there's a miracle that you'll have to get a revenue like it's $1 million. Is it impossible? I don't know, but I think we could increase the revenue there. The Brannan Center, I think there is a big potential that I might make it at breaking even. Same thing with Live Oak and other facilities. Right now, I think the manager we have there, I think we have talked to Rob, we have talked to him. Everybody understand that this is a critical item that we have to work on. We need to think outside the box in terms of the revenue source and in terms of marketing. So you could see some of the improvement, the increase in the revenue. I mean, it's not as easy because if you look at the list and you see how many times we have rented, or not rented, but have somebody to use the facility at no cost, us, other government agencies, it's quite a bit.
But even having the sports complex used 45 times out of 52, I could see having one enterprise that far off because, it's our baby, it's for our kids. But then when the county uses it, that type of thing, when we asked Rob to do this a year and a half ago, like our very first time we were up here, my very first comment was I would like to see each enterprise to at least break even. That was a year and a half ago. And to now, we're getting it piecemeal back to us one at a time. And sometimes he brings us a summary of what he's going to give us. I'm like, okay, months go by, So it's been a year and a half since we've been requiring each one of these to at least break even or at least set it from up here. And to see that, okay, let's ask for another park at the sports complex, even though we're asking for $60 million. I don't understand that thought process when they're not performing like we should see. Why ask for anything if we're already in the horrible red? I don't get that, but that's just me.
Appreciate the comments from you two, and now on to Commissioner Hartman.
Well, there's a lot of pieces to this whole process, so I'd be curious to see where we are when we get closer to the end of this budget year. Are we on budget? Are we under budget? What's the cost savings on not taking credit cards? You know, we projected what we would come with that. Where's the revenue on the interest money on all of the money that's been sitting idle for year after year after year? You know, so I want to see the total picture to see where we are at the end of the day. Does this figure that this 4.63, does that include the 3 debt lines that we have also?
The one I gave you, the 4.6370, that's added to the current millage, the 0.222 to it.
Okay, so it's,
But that's just operating.
right. So, you know, I mean, we don't know what the adjusted value of a home is yet, and so, you know, we don't know what we're going to get. We don't know what the projected gas tax is going to be from the state, what the, you know, or sales tax, any of that yet. So it's difficult now to start saying, cut this, when, you know, we don't know what our total dollar figure is going to be.
I don't think I was asking for cut. I was asking for what are the items that you as a district commissioner, you feel like it's important, whether to the city or whether to your zone. We started off saying this is projected. I mean, I don't know what it's going to be,
Well,
but I need to have something to go by in order to present to you. So
yeah,
that's,
but I you know, I remember having a conversation with Michelle when we built 27th Avenue. This was the state-of-the-art material. It was guaranteed to be rust resistant. It was painted inside and out. You know, it would last us 10 or 15 years, and we've already replaced it once. Now we're going to do it again. You know, maybe we shouldn't replace it. Maybe just leave it an open space.
Or maybe we should use appropriate materials for real.
Well, you know, so, I mean, we're into a lot of this stuff that,
and believe me,
I don't, you know, it's nobody's fault. It's just.
No, not about
It's the way
fault, not about fault, but it kills me.
Yes.
Because it's the rust issue, I've been dealing with it since I got here.
Right.
And I remember, I don't know who mentioned the flag of boardwalk. Was it Commissioner Martin or the mayor? But I remember when they built the boardwalk, it has over 1,000 nuts and bolts. And based on the drawing, they were supposed to use stainless steel number 10. So all of a sudden you could see the rust on them, and so they start questioning, did the contractor use the specific nuts and bolts? And we had to bring somebody from Jacksonville, a special, to come down here to test randomly these nuts and bolts. And I remember he was up on the ladder, and I go there and I said, how does it look? And he looked at me, he said, well, just remember, it's a stainless. So unless if you use a marine nuts and bolts or a marine material, you will have the rust. Now, the marine product, as you know, it's very expensive. We increased the stainless steel on the one at Sapphire. That was supposed to be, use that and it's no problem. And I monitored it for 4 months, and you could see the film on it. It wasn't rusted, but you could see the rust film on it. And it just doesn't look. It bugs you. And it's been bugging me from Riverside Park to the other parks. And this one here, I mean, they promised us it's going to be the best material, and it's going to be, I don't believe it. Unless if you use recycled plastic or woods, you will have rust on probably the nuts and bolts if they're not marine graded.
That's why I didn't buy B-side.
Yes,
I have
ma'am.
one more thing. I'm sorry I didn't finish. But again, with this admin summary, this 220-some thousand, perfect world, we'd have the new city manager to give input, but it doesn't sound like the timing's going to be right for that. But if you break down this, and just like our leisure services, from the very beginning, we have been up here talking about economic development. We had negative numbers. We had negative numbers in leisure services. I'm getting tired. But then they're asking for more money. Again, I would like to focus on eliminating those things until I see performance.
Thank you. Commissioner Martin.
Just a question. I'm wondering how much of the big ticket items, maintenance ops, and I don't know the answer, but I know we put off a lot of stuff year after year after year, like the South Atlantic street lights. And I don't know whether any of this puts us in a, we're all caught up and now we're prepared to just do the small increments year after year to keep us clean and shiny, or is this just going to continue always being huge chunks? So I just don't know where we're playing catch up and stopping demolition by neglect, or is this standard? How's that?
Well, I don't know about standard, but I think it's like, take, for example, take the resurfacing. The resurfacing, it's the easiest item to cut out of the budget. So in the past, every time they needed something to cut, where did they go? To the street resurfacing. And so when you have $150,000 or $250,000 for resurfacing, what are you going to resurface? Especially the ton of asphalt gone up almost 5 or 6 times from the time that I remember when we used to do. What we used to do with 150 to 250,000, we used to do 4 or 5 miles. Now, the 150 would not even do a parking lot for you.
Yeah, well, this is one of the ones I'm thinking. I mean, where should we adjust our thinking? It seems to me, I remember years ago when we did a study on the streets, we were supposed to optimize them. It was something like 800,000 a year. I mean, this goes back at least 5 years.
It was, I think it was more than that.
It may have been. So my point is that should we adjust our thinking and say, okay, we know streets every year are going to be 1.5 mil. I mean, should we think that way?
Absolutely, and that's why, when we did, at the time, we had the consultant to do the study on the streets, and I think their recommendation was to use the number, and I can't remember the exact number, but it was 1.7, 1.9 million, I don't have the exact number.
Yeah.
But in order to, I think, this past year, I think we had some ARPA funds to go to it. So the 1.2 million, in my opinion, that should be a must and it shouldn't be changed, because that's, resurfacing these roads, people, this is what they see.
No, I agree with you. And if that's sort of what we should have as an annual expense, not a catch-up expense, but a basic annual expense, and we should adjust our thinking that way.
And I agree with you there.
Thank you all. Any other comments from anybody else? Okay. I'm not wed to any of these. I am the self-funded emergency vehicle. No harm, no foul. Some negotiation on the county, with us in the county, that we'll have to walk our way through. But as far as all these other things, I think in terms of what the citizenry are going to see, they trust us to make good financial decisions for the as fiduciaries to the city. And so when you see a growth pattern that we delivered last year and are in place to deliver again this year, then you start wearing a label. And so I worry that we are no longer the lowest millage rate in the county. My predecessor talked about whether that was a badge of honor or a badge of shame. And so I don't think we need to be at the lowest, but we need to be mindful of the level of growth and the rate of growth for which we grow the city as versus what we grow the budget for the city, the population, as Vice Mayor was talking about. So in a perfect world, I'd like every department head to get their candy and get what they need to do their job without any effort. But it's not simple, and it requires risk-taking and decision-making. And Khalid, we leaned on you heavily last time to make those cuts. You guys came after us for a 20% increase last year, and I just thought it was a non-starter. We whittled that down. I would suspect that this will need the same type of treatment, and those are very difficult calls that you as the operator, not us as the policy people, but you as the operator. We have our pet rocks, that's fine, that gets in the way, so I won't have any for you today. But you and your successor have to be the hard shot callers on keeping us in line, and know that you can't break the backs of any one of your department heads. You have to be real to them as well, or they run away, they go away. So it's a very difficult job. And so for us to give you our pet rocks today is fine, but the end of the day, like Hartman says, unless I know the whole game, I can't play my card until I know what the end game is. And I'm talking about end game, I don't mean every single thing, but millage at the end, but until the ingredients that you're going to go up.
Maybe I misstated what I was looking for. What I'm looking for is not to go like a specific item, but if there is any item out of the list that you say, hey, you know, we promised those people we need to do this, or this is a very important item, I need to have that. That's what I was looking for. I mean, I have no issue to go back, and I've done it many times, to go back and give you a balanced budget and cut what I think it's needed to be cut. I have no problem with that. But I would just, you know, for example, if I take out for the street lights for South Atlantic and Canal Street, here's Commissioner Martin. She's going to jump up and down that this wasn't, you know, we talked about it last year. Why did you take it out this time? If I take some other item, maybe, you know, Vice Mayor might, or same thing for you, Mayor, or for Commissioner Hartman. So if there's any item out of this that you say, hey, I mean, this is a must, like, for example, the resurfacing, that's a must. I cannot cut it. So.
I'm grateful that you're in your position and I'm in mine. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. We're adjourned.
Thank you.